Thank you, Planning Commission. My name is John Costin. I'm Chair of Virginia Beach Planning Commission. Welcome to the January 14th, 2026 informal session of the Virginia Beach Planning Commission. Call this meeting to order. Well, it's a new year, it's a new day. And we thank you for everyone's support. I will now ask Planning Administrator, Ms. Caitlin Alcott, for comments and to review our procedures for today's meeting.
Just a couple quick things. As a reminder, this is our first informal hearing that we are televising, so mics and cameras are live and active. So just be mindful of the mic placement on the table, location of the cameras, make sure you're speaking loud. To avoid any sort of speaking over one another, please make sure the chair acknowledges you before you speak so that the mics can pick up the sound clearly. Avoid any sort of rustling of paper if possible, because it does pick that up very loudly on the mics. So that's that. There is an email forthcoming from the city clerk's office. It is the time of year to do your annual real estate disclosure. I know several of you have already done that. So just remember to get that in. It is due to the clerk's office by Monday, February 5th at 5 p.m. You can send her an email copy. It just has to be a wet signature for that. She cannot take an electronic signature for that. So just make sure that gets to her. If you need, it goes to Terry. So if you need her contact information, let me know. Like I said, she'll be sending out an email soon for that. And then last reminder, there's the comp plan workshop at 2 o'clock. So we'll move back in here after the informal hearing. We've advertised it to start at 2, so it cannot start any earlier. But if the formal session runs long, we will move in right after that formal session wraps up. We can take a quick recess just to kind of transition, get everything set up, that sort of thing. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Well, we're going to start the review of our items today first.
Absolutely.
And we'll go right to you.
So the first item, as Mark Reed makes his way up here, this is one that was carried over from last month, so this should be very familiar to you, but Mark's going to run through it really quickly, again, related to the Nimmo Church Historic and Cultural District.
Good morning. As Caitlin noted, this is an item that was deferred from the December meeting. It's an ordinance to remove the Historic and Cultural District zoning overlay from the Nimmo Church Historic and Cultural District. It involves 2 parcels. Which I'll show you if I can. Rodney, can you? There we go. So the district is located at the corner of Princess Anne Road and General Booth Boulevard. As I noted, 2 parcels. You see them there on the screen. The district was created in 1980. The 2 parcels include a commercial use, which is a Royal Farms convenience store, car wash, gas station, and the historic Nimmo Church. So you see the gas station there on the left and the church property on the right. That shows the Nimmo Church property here. And you can see surrounding it, there's some development to the north and northeast, but it does have a lot of open space around it, as well as within its property boundaries. See the church there on the left. The historic part of the church is right behind the steeple. It was originally constructed in the 1790s. The steeple was added in the 1890s, and then additions in the 20th century have been built around it. See, it has a fairly large parcel with open space, has a fairly large cemetery as well. And then the Royal Farms gas station, it's built very recently, I think completed in 2023, and sits right at the corner of General Booth and Princess Anne. There has been one letter of support that came from Nimmo Church, and 2 letters of opposition from Historical Review Board and the Historic Preservation Commission. The letter of support notes the cost of materials and the requirement for the historic portion of the church to have similar materials used. It notes that's a requirement of the Historical Review Board, but I would say it's really standard historic preservation practice. The Secretary of Interior Standards for Historic Rehabilitation note that you want to repair with like materials. If you can't repair, you would replace with like materials. And our ordinance recommends conformity with the Secretary of Interior Standards. The letters of opposition note the precedent this would set for the removal of this zoning overlay, as well as the fact that typically you would only remove it if a building had been damaged and no longer historically significant, or demolished and no longer intact, and neither of those are in place here. Welcome to take any questions.
Commissioner Camp.
Thank you for the briefing. 2 questions. Could you clarify what appears to be a difference between the briefing we received on this topic last month and the letter that we received after 5 o'clock last night? Has a matter involving this church been brought before the Historic Review Board and they were turned down, which is what I believe I read in the letter last night? But I think you told us last month that was not the case. There's no pending matter now that they have a current denial on.
That is correct. There is no pending matter. The letter you received from the church noted a 2021 application, and I mentioned that last month. That was not for repairs. It was for new additions. They were requesting 4 additions to their building complex. The Historical Review Board approved 3 of those and denied 1. The one they denied would have been placed in front of the steeple, and the review board felt that that would cover up what is a character-defining feature of the church. The letter mentions a meeting with our staff liaison, which after the December meeting and my presentation, I did further digging into our files and did find that there was a site visit by Elizabeth Nowak, who was at that time the staff liaison to the Historical Review Board. She provided some notes that I was able to review. As the letter indicates, the roofing that they wanted to do, she was able to approve that with a staff exception, and so that did not need to go to the review board. From what I can tell, that project has been completed. Looking at the aerial views, it looks like they've got the new roofing. They did not come forward with any application relative to the siding or the windows, which they need to repair or replace.
And my other question was, if I remember your briefing last month, I believe you said that this historic district relates to the exterior of buildings. The letter last night talks about the sanctuary, the interior of the church being historic. do I understand correctly that the interior of the building has nothing to do with this particular matter before us today?
That is correct. The Historical Review Board does not review projects that involve the interior of buildings. It is just the exterior.
Thank you for the clarifications.
Commissioner Plumley.
Thank you, Mr. Reed. Has the planning staff been contacted by any, I've been contacted by some decision makers in the city. I think others on the planning commission have been contacted and asked to consider deferral of this item for some period of time because there was some consideration about trying to find state funding or other means to fund some of the improvements that are needed. Had the staff been contacted about that?
Caitlin will address that.
Yeah, so we had heard the same request. We did speak to the church. The church was against any sort of deferral of considering this item. We were told that regardless of the proposed budget amendment, they would still want to pursue removal of the district.
Okay.
Separate and apart from that.
Thank you. Has there been anyone from the church? I understand the letter came. Anyone from the church that's been ready to come today?
We
Okay.
have 3 members that should be here today.
All right. Thank you very much.
Hi, Mr. Reed. Just a quick question in regard to back in 1980 when this historical district was created. At whose request was it created?
I'm not sure of how it was initiated. There's very little information we've been able to find other than what is noted in city council minutes, which says it came forward from the planning commission, but who brought it to the planning commission, I don't know.
And then in review of, as a broad stroke for historical properties that are aging, I can't help but think that this has been happening, throughout our country and will continue to happen. Has there been any conversation where the essence of the ordinance can still be met, but then somehow find a compromise?
Well, typically the design guidelines within a historic district provides for some flexibility. So until something like this would come forward to the Historical Review Board, I'm not sure how much flexibility they would find. I'm sure that staff would recommend for the historic part of the building to follow the Secretary of Interior standards, which would be to replace with like materials.
Thank you very much.
So we're going to hear, oh, wait a minute. I don't know.
Just to be clear, Caitlin, you said that although funding is available, they do not,
No, so
that has no bearing.
the church wanted to move forward with removal of the district regardless of what happens with the proposed budget amendment. That has not moved through yet. In speaking with other staff in the city, we were told it would probably be around the middle of March timeframe when there would be a decision on the proposed budget amendment. But in speaking with representatives of the church, they still wanted to pursue removal of the historic district, whether or not the budget amendment is approved.
Commissioner Byler?
But the agenda item is being brought by the city. So it really is at the church's decision whether or not a deferral is requested. That's up to the city. So I'd like to know from our council, Ms. Royster, is there a request for a 60-day deferral, or do we want to proceed with it today?
At the end of the day, that's up to the commission if they want to seek a deferral. Just a reminder that you've already deferred it once. And so that 100-day timeline, if this council is not initiated by the applicant and they defer it, you have to do it within that time frame where it automatically goes to council for a decision.
And I would just add that while this is being brought forward by the city, it was due to a request from the church that came down through city council. So we did want to honor the wishes of the church.
Any more questions? Commissioner March?
For clarification, the request was for deferral was that asked by the applicant, that being the city, or was that requested by the planning commission?
The first one. If I recall, it was by the planning commission, but you all can correct me if I'm wrong.
No, so I got a call about it. There was an effort to try to raise some money for them, and I was asked to ask for a 60-day deferral. And I'm sure other people have heard the same thing. And so what we were trying to do was figure out how we could get this money for them so they wouldn't have to do this. But it sounds like they would prefer to not do that regardless and just go ahead and ask to get their building removed from the historical registry. And it's my understanding that they had requested to be put on there in the first place, if that is useful to anybody to know.
But the deferral last month was
us.
by the
our
commission
That's right.
to hear from representatives from the
Because
church.
no one came to speak on their side of the issue, and we asked for 30 days. I've not heard any new information of consequence, but I did hear that there was some effort to get funding, but if the church doesn't want that to be an item for consideration, I think that's their prerogative.
Commissioner Hippen?
Well, I would like to hear, I would assume that someone from the church is one of the ones speaking.
Correct.
Okay, then I definitely, I mean, there's no question.
gotta
We're
have
going to
a
hear it anyway, but I think we need to hear from them before we say yay or nay. I too received communication about a 60-day deferral, and I brought up, hey, you've got a 100-day window to do all of this, so you need to keep that in mind. So I think we should just move along and let's hear what folks have to say in the public hearing. Thank you.
So we're going to hear this? I'd like to read that for us. Commissioner March, would you like to read?
I can, but I believe
It's going to be heard.
Somebody's just-
Switch this out.
Guess you're just going to have to say next.
I was going to say,
It's a beautiful map. It's lovely.
would someone be able to help me out with moving the slides along? Okay, great. Good morning. Agenda item number 2 is a request by David A. and Robin Parker for a street closure to the western half of Arctic Avenue. Wonderful. Adjacent to the applicant's property at 300 Winston-Salem Avenue. The applicant plans to incorporate the closed 3,700 square foot right-of-way into their property. At the December viewers meeting, it was determined that the proposed closure would not result in any public inconvenience. An existing public stormwater pipe does extend through this segment of Arctic Avenue, and additional stormwater improvements are planned as part of the Winston-Salem Corridor Improvement Plan, or CIP. Conditions, and you can see that pipe here, conditions have been included to dedicate a public drainage and access easement for maintenance of these facilities, and temporary construction easement over the area for the completion of the Winston-Salem CIP. Staff is recommending approval of this request subject to those conditions contained within the staff report.
Any questions? Commissioner Camp?
Thank you. Really a procedural question.
Okay.
The staff report on this one identifies 5 of the viewers. Could you please review for the commission who are all of the viewers for the city when a road closure is brought forward? And if one of them does not participate in the meeting because they represent different interests, how are their interests taken care of on the application? Essentially, what I'm saying is, I don't know if there's an office not listed here in the staff report that would have been a viewer, and were their interests taken care of in reviewing this?
Great question. So our standard reviewers are going to be the city attorney real estate office, the Parks and Rec office, the public utilities office, the public works office, who made the determination here that this easement was needed, and the 5th office, us. Cool. Okay. Yeah, we're the 5th viewer, right?
So is it correct to state there are 5 viewers and all 5 of those offices participated in this particular review?
I believe we had 4 of those offices for the review, and the 5th office wrote in that they had no comments.
Thank you, sir.
Further questions? Commissioner Schoonover, you hear anything?
Thank you.
We okay for consent?
Good morning.
Morning.
Agenda item 5 is a request for a modification of conditions. The applicant is requesting a modification of conditions to modify the concept plan renderings and elevations for a previously approved change in nonconformity to depict a previously constructed staircase and deck, as well as allow for the development of a future handicap accessible ramp. On December 10th, 2024, a change in nonconformity was granted on this site to construct an addition at the rear of the existing duplex. The conditions specified that at the time, the site be developed in accordance with the submitted site plan, elevations, and renderings, which did not include the existing staircase and deck or the future handicap ramp, which is why the modification of conditions was required. The staircase and deck are already existing and are constructed using treated wood. The future ramp, if needed, would be constructed in approximately the same location as the existing staircase and would be constructed of the same materials, treated wood. The request for a modification of conditions to a change in nonconformity to allow an existing staircase, deck, and the development of a future handicap accessible ramp is, in staff's opinion, acceptable. The staircase, deck, and future ramp are limited in scope and are in keeping with the development pattern of the surrounding area. The proposed future handicap ramp will be located in approximately the same location as the existing staircase. Staff has received 4 letters of support for this request. And based on these considerations, again, staff is recommending approval based on the conditions listed in the staff report.
Any questions? Commissioner Schoonover again, your area. Heard nothing. We're okay for consent then?
Agenda item number 4 is a request for a modification of conditions for Star of the Sea Catholic Church, Catholic Diocese of Richmond at 1500 Pacific Avenue. In 2001, the City Council approved a conditional use permit for a commercial parking lot / church parking lot on the property, which included a condition requiring the use of landscaping in place of fencing around the perimeter of the parking lot. As such, it was determined by staff that a modification of conditions to the 2001 commercial parking lot CUP would be required prior to the approval of a fence permit. Additionally, the Oceanfront Resort District Form-Based Code and City Code Section 23-58 both limit permissible fence height at the proposed location to 4 feet, so a height deviation is requested to permit a 6-foot-tall fence around the perimeter of the parking lot. In addition to its use as a commercial parking lot, the applicant uses the parking lot as a play/recess area for students of the adjacent Star of the Sea Catholic School. The applicant does not conduct these uses simultaneously. Following a security incident that occurred while students were playing outside, the applicant was advised by the Virginia Beach Police Department to increase the height of the fence on the property to 6 feet. The site is located within the resort area strategic growth area and the ACU's 65 decibels to 70 decibels noise zone. The resort area SGA calls for fences to be complementary to building design and discourages the use of stockade or chain link fences. The applicant proposes to remove the existing chain link fence and replace it with a maintenance-free alternative, which meets this recommendation. The placement of the fence will be chamfered at the corner of the intersection of Pacific and 16th Street in accordance with the Public Works design standards pertaining to sight distance at intersections. All existing landscaping will remain, and no new landscaping is proposed. Staff recommend a condition limiting the hours of operation of the commercial parking lot to prevent overlap with the use of the lot as a play/recess area. Given these considerations and the safety concern associated with a request for a height deviation, staff finds the proposed modification of conditions for a commercial parking lot/church parking lot to be acceptable. Staff recommends approval of this application, subject to the conditions in the staff report.
Anyone have any questions?
Thank you. I did see that there was in the first round of supplements, and I'm trying to pull it up now, but
I have it. I was going to bring it up, but you could go ahead for the PDRC.
Yes.
It's right here.
Thank you so much. Planning Design Review Committee for the Resort Advisory Commission had added a couple of recommendations that they would like to see with this, and I didn't know if there was consideration given to their request, but for those who may not have seen the letter, they had put 3 recommendations in. Recommendation of approval is tied to specifically to the existing land use as Star of the Sea Church and does not run with the parcel. The second condition is recommendation of approval is not transferable to any new or future uses of the property. And then the third condition is that all screening hedging should be maintained as continuous linear hedge rather than individually pruned shrubs. If ever anybody got an opportunity to read this, I don't. I think that that's a pretty good 3 recommendations that I would be open to if the board is open to it. If we could add those, and I haven't heard any concerns about it. But if we could do that, and if there is consent amongst the body to place those on there with on the consent agenda.
Commissioner Plumley.
Has there been any opposition to this request?
None that we've heard.
Thank you.
Commissioner Coyle.
So I'm a member of the Star of the Sea Parish, and I had an opportunity to speak to our facility manager. I can certainly say that in addition to our mission, I said that the parish is a good neighbor, and certainly when it comes from a recommendation from the police department to protect the children at the school, that the church has gone through all the necessary steps for the approval for this application, and that it's my understanding from our facility manager that they are in agreement with the PDRC's recommendation. And so I would definitely recommend this for approval. And there's never been a time where I've seen any of our grounds that are in any type of disarray. And so I believe they will continue to, support their mission and continue to be an active member of our city.
Can we make these mods and proceed on consent?
I would recommend for the modifications on the consent agenda.
Any other questions? I'd like to have a new reader. I don't know where Ms.
I'd be happy to read. I didn't want to overwhelm you since it's a little bit of District 5.
It's your church, though. I feel like you should do that.
I'll be happy to read it.
I read very short blurbs. It wouldn't overwhelm me. Don't worry about that. How can I say it in one sentence?
Good morning. The next item is item number 5, and this is a request from Shaquilla Berner for conditional rezoning from R7.5 residential to conditional A18. There is a request for a 30-day deferral of this item to refine the proposal and to ensure that all applicable dimensional requirements are met on the property. The applicant is requesting a deferral, but staff found an oversight that we need to address, and so that's why the 30-day deferral is being requested.
Commissioner Camp.
So on that same point, in that packet we were given after 5 last night, it said that the applicant was requesting the deferral in order to comply with information requests. So again, who is asking for the deferral, the applicant or the staff?
So the applicant is requesting the deferral, but staff found some oversight that needed to be addressed, and so they agreed to the 30-day deferral for the item.
Any further questions? Let's move on to the next item.
Agenda item 6 is a request for a conditional rezoning from O2 Office District to conditional B2 Community Business District to allow the operation of a retail store. The subject site was previously occupied by a chiropractic office operated by the property owners. In 2025, the owners retired and closed the office, after which the property was leased for a retail use, more specifically a balloon shop. Since retail uses are not permitted in the O2 office district, the business operator was informed that a business license could not be issued. The conditional rezoning was submitted by the property owner to bring the use into compliance. Since this property is located within the greater than 75 noise zone, the applicant, through the proffer agreement, has limited the allowable uses to those that are permitted in the B2 Community Business District and compatible with the greater than 75 noise zone as detailed by Article 18 of the zoning ordinance. In staff's opinion, this request for a conditional rezoning from O2 Office District to conditional B2 Community Business District is acceptable. This section of First Colonial Road includes a variety of zoning classifications, including existing B2 zoning to the north and south of the subject property. There are no changes proposed to the site with this request. However, the applicant has proffered a limitation on allowable uses in order to align with the ACU's overlay regulations. The proposed limited uses are not only compatible with the ACU's overlay, but also appropriate for the site's location at the corner of First Colonial Road and Wolf Snare Road. B2 commercial uses not only will provide an opportunity for the current business to operate, but also allow for other neighborhood serving commercial uses in the future. This is in keeping with the land use recommendations of the comprehensive plan, as well as neighboring zoning along First Colonial Road. Staff has received no opposition to this request, and again, staff is recommending approval subject to the proffers listed in the staff report.
Any questions? Commissioner Plumley?
I must abstain from this for reasons set forth in a letter filed with the city.
Okay. Then could we get somebody to read that? I think as soon as it's going to be.
I'll read it.
Not that. No, said that yet.
We'll put it on consent.
Yeah, let's do that.
Just want to make sure.
Good morning, Commissioners. This item 7 is a request for a conditional use permit for a bulk storage yard at 464 Progress Lane for Oceana Development LLC. The applicant is requesting to construct a contractor laydown yard along with 30,000 square foot office and warehouse building. On December 13th, 2005, City Council approved a conditional rezoning from R10 Residential District to conditional I1 Light Industrial District on the subject property. The property is in the greater than 75 ACUs as well as accident potential zones 1 and 2. It is also encumbered by Navy restrictive easement and is located in the Special Economic Growth Area 2, West Oceana. The proposed development of the site, including the use of a bulk storage yard, is considered compatible with the previously approved proffers. Hours of operation would be 7 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. Monday through Saturday. The applicant is requesting a deviation on landscaping requirements to allow the installation of some chain link fencing and retention of the existing forested area within the CBPA buffer. The deviation will be along the eastern and northern portions of the storage yard, as well as half of the southern edge, as highlighted by the blue line on the submitted site plan. The remaining portion of the southern edge of the storage yard and the entire western edge will be screened with an 8-foot-tall privacy fence and required landscaping, as highlighted by the red line. The applicant is also proposing installation of street trees on Progress Lane and an additional row of evergreen trees within the 25-foot landscape buffer that is adjacent to the parking lot and Evergreens neighborhood on Brush Creek Lane.
And just as a note, the pink line on the plan depicts an already built 8-foot tall privacy fencing that is on the property for the homes. The areas where the proposed deviations are requested will not be visible from the public right-of-way, and the retention of the mature landscaping will provide a significant buffer for the adjacent properties. Materials for the enclosure include board-on-board cedar privacy fencing and galvanized chain link fencing. As displayed in the renderings, the proposed building will be constructed with pre-engineered metal, block exterior facade, and metal siding. While staff is recommending approval of this request subject to the conditions in the staff report, we have received one letter of opposition that should have been included in last night's supplement package. We also currently have 2 speakers signed up in opposition, so you will most likely be hearing this item this afternoon. Thank you.
Any questions? Mr. Anderson?
No, I met with the client. I also spoke with one of the homeowners that might be one of the speakers. And we discussed the landscaping buffer and the fences. And I did ask the applicant, which they agreed to, and they added an extra layer of evergreen buffer zone to the back side of the property of the residence. Everything else seems to be in line for me.
Commissioner Cromwell?
I'm looking at the pictures of the site photos in our packet. It shows some mature stand of trees along the, I'm not quite sure what road that is in the picture, but are any of those mature trees in the back going to be taken down, or is all the mature trees going to be left standing as a buffer? There you go, there's the picture right there, where the
Yes.
bicycle is.
Those are all on Progress Lane. I think on the site plan, if you give me just 1 second. It would appear that those are going to be taken out. That would be where the street trees are going to be placed.
How big an area is that? If they're gonna be logged?
I don't have this information at this time, but I can speak to the representative and try to
Go
find
back
it.
to the site plan, the concept plan.
So the area that you're looking at that's along Progress Lane that currently has the trees is where the majority of the proposed parking lot and building are located. You can see in the darker green there, and then there's some existing trees not highlighted, but that's what's being retained. But the majority of what you can see from those photos will be removed with the parking lot and the building.
So the dark green area of the, on the map there, those are the trees that will remain? That's the mature, along the borders?
Along the edge
Yeah.
of the bulk storage yard.
Right,
Yes.
okay, thank you.
Commissioner Camp?
On the other side of Progress Lane from this site, I believe there's a sidewalk existing. There's a partial sidewalk on this side of the street. We see it in this diagram over to the right. Is the applicant proposing to extend that sidewalk along its frontage of Progress Lane?
Are you talking about adding a sidewalk here on Progress Lane?
You can see the one at the bottom picture that is on
Right.
the opposite side of the street, I believe? Or is that the same side? I'm trying to get the orientation here.
I believe the top 2 photos are on the, what would be
The site.
continuing down this way.
Yes, so we have a sidewalk partially coming down the applicant's side of the street. And I'm asking, is the applicant going to extend that sidewalk along its frontage?
That would be, I believe, a requirement of the site plan when this goes through site plan review to extend the sidewalk, but we could certainly condition that here as well.
Just to make sure, yeah.
And therefore, if I understand right, if a sidewalk is put in, the 2 entrances to this will have the ADA sloped approach where the sidewalk meets the driveway? Okay, so to be clear, is that going to happen on its own? Or is that something we need to attach a condition?
You can do both. It would be a requirement at the time of site plan review, I believe, but it doesn't hurt to add the condition here as well.
Well,
That is within this commission's ability to add that condition.
Well, I don't feel like I need the belt and the suspenders. If it's a requirement that it's going to happen, then fine. Thank you.
Any other questions?
So we're going to hear this, or?
Yes.
Yes, you will.
Yeah, we have 2 or 3
You got it,
speakers.
that's right.
Agenda item 8 is a request for a conditional use permit for an indoor recreational facility. The applicant proposes to repurpose the existing vacant movie theater building and add a 12,300 square foot addition at the front of the building, all of which will be used for the indoor recreational facility. The facility will contain 7 paddle courts, 1 pickleball courts, and associated facilities to include locker rooms. Additionally, an 8,200 square foot restaurant, which is permitted by right in the B2 Community Business District, is proposed in the northeastern corner of the property. The materials proposed include metal panels in bronze and champagne and a buff stone masonry block base. A mural is proposed on the front of the building, which will be subject to the review and approval of the planning director. The applicant has initially proposed to retain and reface the existing freestanding sign. However, based on discussion at the Planning Commission site visits, the applicant has indicated they are amenable to installing a new sign of a similar size and design in approximately the same location on the site. A total of 165 parking spaces is required for the proposed indoor recreational facility and an additional 82 spaces for the restaurant, for a total of 247 parking spaces for the entire site. The applicant has submitted a parking study to reduce the required parking for the recreational facility to 5 spaces per court for a total of 40 spaces, bringing the overall requirement for the site to 122 spaces. As depicted on the conceptual site plan, 176 parking spaces are proposed. The parking study and reduction were reviewed and approved by the zoning administrator, and the approval letter was supposed to be included with the supplements. I do apologize. I believe there was a technical error with that, but I will get copies for everyone before formal. Staff does not anticipate any adverse traffic impacts as the trips generated by the proposed use will be less than the number of average daily trips for the existing use on the site. Although the active transportation plan calls for an 11-foot wide shared use path along Laskin Road, the applicant has indicated that the installation of the path would be difficult due to various site constraints, including reworking of curb and gutter, relocating or modifying utility lines, storm sewer systems and existing street lights, filling in of wetlands along the northeastern portion of the site, removal of existing mature vegetation, and the removal of a row of existing parking spaces along the northwestern portion of the site. Additionally, the site is located within the boundary of the Laskin Road Phase 2 CIP project, and the design and plans for which are not currently in progress. The applicant's engineer has explored the feasibility of installing a 5-foot sidewalk along the eastern frontage. However, the same constraints do apply. The applicant has received support from the Resort Advisory Commission's Planning and Design Review Subcommittee, PDRC. Additionally, the applicant hosted a community meeting on the site in December, which was attended by 10 members of the community. The applicant indicated that the overall response to the proposal was supportive. Based on these considerations, staff is recommending approval of this request, subject to the conditions listed in the staff report.
Questions? Mr. March?
We had previously viewed this site for a different use, and one of the large concerns that had been brought out at that time, and going to the site and visiting, I had mentioned that the ability of the property owner to put a suggested no left-hand turn sign due to the traffic and getting across from those quasi-feeder roads and across traffic to go west. Was there any consideration given or any feedback?
Yes, I did discuss that with our traffic engineering staff. They indicated that based on the site, it would not require a no left-hand turn or right-hand turn only sign at this time.
Yes, I know that was what was said also at the last on the last time we had visited this site. But I was asking if the applicant was amenable to putting up a sign on their own property suggesting no left-hand turns.
I can bring that to their attention. I know they had also heard the same feedback from traffic engineering, but I can certainly bring that up if that would be something they would be open to.
Commissioner Camp and then Commissioner John.
Since parking is one of the issues, I have 2 questions about that. On the conceptual site plan, I could only see one dumpster, and that takes up potential parking area dumpsters. Is it correct that the applicant is planning to have the restaurant cart its trash across the parking lot to the one dumpster that's over by the other building?
I would need to confirm with the applicant what that plan is.
Okay, and then the second issue, again, we didn't receive the parking study until last night, and that 249 pages. If I read it correctly, it said that there's no accounting for the employees. Is that correct? That the employee parking is not accounted for? It only accounts for the patrons of the restaurant and the patrons of the recreational facility? Or did I misread that?
I would have to review that and just confirm what the statement of that was regarding the employee parking.
As proposed in the study or as required in the ordinance?
Study that what, again, we didn't get the approval letter until we just sat down here. So what I'm trying to understand is the study studies the necessary parking, and it didn't appear to account for the employees who would work on this site. So I'm trying to make heads or tails of this.
And I can say, and I don't know, Hannah, if you want to speak more to it, based on their ask in the study specific to the indoor rec, they wanted to go to a ratio of 5 spaces per court. And with that approval, the number that would then be required on the site, they are still then exceeding. I don't want to say they're exceeding the requirement by ordinance, because then they wouldn't need the study. So they still, based on their calculation for the indoor rec, would have excess parking that would cover the employees.
Well, I don't know if they'll cover them because we don't know how many employees there are. That's my point.
And I do believe the number of employees, at least for the indoor recreational facilities, should be included in the background portion of the staff report. I don't have that number right offhand, but I do believe it's included there. And if not, I'm certainly happy to confirm with the applicant.
When the ordinance looks at the minimum parking requirements, and when it does not specifically call out X number of spaces plus number of spaces per employees, that's baked into those required numbers. So the proposed parking is 94 spaces dedicated to those 8 courts, which is 11 parking spaces per court. So that is above what both the parking study, and then we also confirm with Parks and Rec what the number of spaces would be required for this type of facility. Not specifically just the number of patrons that are coming, but the facility as a whole. And that accounts for people that are coming to visit to watch the sport, people that are participating, and for the employees at the facility. So it is kind of baked into that number. We don't break it out typically by, unless it's a very specific, unless we're looking at very small or specific parking, like for example, car washes, where you're not going to have a lot of people coming and parking. Then we may look at specifically how many employees are there. But typically we're looking at the facility as a whole, and that's going to include the employees.
Thank you. My question was really because the study went into such detail about number of people per court, and the employees aren't on the court, that I was trying to make sense of how did you get to these total numbers? Thank you.
So my comment is to do with Michael's, Commissioner Rush's comment. I spoke with the applicant and they said it's not their responsibility with the left turn or right hand turn sign. It's purely with the traffic department, so they'd probably be consulted. But just to clarify that it's not their responsibility.
Certainly, I'm happy to get that clarification.
Any further questions? Commissioner Plumley?
Oh, I believe our traffic engineer, Rick Lohman, would like to come down as well.
I just want to address the left turn movement. I mean, we've looked at this. I mean, even as a movie theater that's been in use for a good number of years. I mean, an active movie theater. Looking at our crash reports, we've had 2 angle crashes there in the last 5.5 years. That left turn movement isn't a particularly unsafe movement at all. I know that it was one of the points that was brought up by the people that opposed the last use at this site. But I'm going to tell you, I mean, 2 crashes in the last 5.5 years. I mean, that's, we've got more congested, unsignalized crossovers up and down Alaskian Road, like at La Promenade and we see a few crashes there. But this site here, I mean, not only does it carry less traffic on Laskin Road when you get east of Bird Neck, but yeah, I don't expect this to be a major generator at all. I can't see the reason for, traffic engineering wise for allowing no lefts. You'd have to go all the way down to the roundabout and come back if you did want to go to the west. So I just wanted to throw that in.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any further questions? Have you heard anything, Commissioner Plumley?
I've only heard support for this project. My view is we need it. I think it's superior to what's been previously presented. These courts pull in small numbers in terms of participants. There aren't a great number of courts being proposed. I don't think a left turn restriction is required at that location. I've been there many, 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 many times. I think it's safe with this number. The prior use had far greater numbers proposed, far greater numbers proposed, and they wouldn't even agree to a limitation on the numbers that they could bring to the site. So this is a blight. There's very little that can be done with this space. And I think we need to move it along, and I'd appreciate support for it, but if it needs a hearing, it needs a hearing. So I understand.
Other speakers?
No, there are no speakers at this time, correct?
Commissioner March, are you saying you?
Oh, it wouldn't be anything that would hang up the application, but I just wanted to bring awareness.
So,
Are we good for consent?
okay, consent, there we go.
Commissioner Plumley? Thank you.
Item 9 is a request for a conditional use permit for a bulk storage yard located at 1361 Virginia Beach Boulevard for See the Gems LLC. It is Zone B2 Business District and is in the greater than 75 ACUs Accident Potential Zone 1. The applicant is requesting to construct a tow yard to store vehicles. Proposed hours would be 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Saturday, with towing operations taking place 24/7. The proposal includes removing the outdoor structures that are located in the back of the site, which slightly overhang the current, past the current fencing. The only remaining structure would be the front building, which will be utilized for customers retrieving their vehicles. The back portion of the site has already been established with concrete, so there are no plans for land disturbance at this time. The applicant is requesting for a deviation on landscaping requirements to only construct the required fencing, which will be 6 feet tall and composed of earth-toned vinyl plank without landscaping. The request for the deviation mentions the constraint of the size of the site and lengthy encroachment process relevant to the western portion. The applicant will include some landscaping in the front of the building and along the front portion of Dozier. There are no proposals for signage at this time, and the current signage will be removed from the property. Staff has received 4 signatures of support, including the adjacent residential property owner, and no items of opposition. Therefore, staff is recommending the approval of this request subject to the conditions in the staff report.
Any questions? Commissioner Plumley, is that you again?
I must abstain from this item for the reasons set forth in the letter with the city attorney's office.
I have kind of taken a deeper dive into this, understanding that Commissioner Plumley wasn't going to be able to talk about it. So I have heard no opposition, and I would like it to be placed on the consent agenda, and I'd be happy to read it.
Thank you.
Item 10 is a request for a conditional use permit for an assembly use for Zakia Walcott. The parcel is located at 5193 Shore Drive, Suite 108 in the shopping center, Zone B2 Business District, and is in the less than 65 ACUs. The applicant is requesting to operate an event space to host birthday parties, celebrations, weddings, smaller church services, book signings, and other miscellaneous events in the 2,200 square foot suite. The applicant has provided a current floor plan to share the layout. The applicant is not anticipating more than 90 guests for their larger styled events and will have 3 employees that will be working the events. They have also shared a current image of the existing suite and a rendering of what an event could look like once decorated. Proposed hours of operation would be Monday through Wednesday, 9 a.m. to 10 p.m., Thursday through Sunday, 9 a.m. to 12 a.m. The applicant has proposed additional signage above the entrance and on the windows, which will need further review for approval by zoning in a separate permit process. Staff has received 2 letters of opposition and 1 speaker signed up in opposition as well, so you will most likely be hearing this item this afternoon as well. Staff has received 5 signatures on a petition of support from nearby businesses and is recommending approval of this request subject to the conditions in the staff report.
Any questions? Commissioner Plumley.
When I went out to the site, there's a turnaround on Shore Drive to get, I think, that's the first blue, and I'm sorry.
No,
if we
that's
go
okay.
back to where you were, the first blue is a direct crossing through the median, I think. But to get to the second one, no. I think I'm looking at it. Had there been concerns raised regarding traffic entrance or an assembly use there? Was there consideration of that?
Opposition had mentioned traffic, but I don't think specifically at that entrance. I think just in general that it's going to bring more people to the plaza.
And I saw there was a max anticipated 90, but they weren't restricted. It was going to be whatever the fire marshal came up with?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Just to clarify, there's a median break with the second access, not the first.
Not the first, okay. Thank you. There are like 2 food lines on that same road, and I followed my GPS. I must have missed the first turnaround. Okay.
Any further questions? Well, it's my area and I haven't heard anything. So if y'all are okay with consent?
We have a speaker.
Speakers.
Ready to roll.
You have to have something to do. To earn all this money.
That's a little late.
Making it easy first meeting.
Good morning, Commissioners. Agenda item number 11 is a request for alternative compliance to replace an existing monument sign at 4616 Virginia Beach Boulevard. This property is within the Central Business Core District and is governed by the CBC form-based code. And Section 2210 of the zoning ordinance states that freestanding signs within the CBC district shall be allowed only by special exception for alternative compliance, meaning that any new freestanding signs require approval by the City Council. This request is a result of a company-wide rebranding initiative by the property's current tenant, Bank of America, and the proposed monument-style freestanding sign will be located at the southwest corner of the property, in the same location as the existing freestanding sign. The proposed sign, including the base, is about 5 feet 2 inches tall and 8 feet 6 inches wide at a total of approximately 30 square feet, and this is roughly 18 square feet smaller than the existing sign. This is a photo of the current site with the current sign, and the existing building at this property is non-conforming to the CBC form-based code's Build 2 requirement, as it sits about 60 feet back from Virginia Beach Boulevard. And the intent behind the code's Build 2 requirement is to pull new buildings closer to the street, which reduces the need for new freestanding signs. But this existing site layout creates a scenario where a freestanding sign is necessary. These are the sign drawings and a rendering of what the sign would look like in the spot. The proposed sign complies with the base width, base height, and total sign height requirements stated in Section 210.2 of the zoning ordinance and the setback and landscaping requirements stated in Section 214. And additionally, the sign complies with Section 5.11 of the CBC District Design Guidelines as it has an opaque background and will be placed perpendicular to Virginia Beach Boulevard. A letter of support from the Central Business Districts Association's Design Review Committee is included in the supplements package. And due to the existing site layout, compliance with the district's design guidelines, and compliance with the zoning ordinance, staff is recommending approval of this request subject to the conditions listed in the staff report.
Any questions?
That's my district, and I'll just say I serve on the CBDA Architectural Review Board, and this sailed through unanimously, no problems with it. I think it's appropriate for consent.
Someone like to read it?
John, can you read it?
Sure.
Commissioner Cromwell will read.
Okay, and agenda item number 12 is an alternative compliance request to operate a temporary commercial parking lot at the parcel located at the northwest corner of 24th Street and Pacific Avenue. The applicant, iFly Virginia Beach, is seeking to demolish the existing vacant convenience store and resurface the existing parking lot to operate a temporary commercial parking lot. Section 5.3.7 of the Oceanfront Resort Form-Based Code states that temporary commercial parking lots are not permitted north of 22nd Street, west of Pacific Avenue, and south of 28th Street. And the City Council may approve special exceptions for alternative compliance requests for uses that do not conform to the permitted developments under the code. And these are existing site photos. This is looking at the property from mainly 24th Street, looking north, and then this is from the alleyway to the north, 24th and a half Street. The proposed parking lot will be asphalt and consists of 30 parking spaces, including ADA accessible spaces, compact car spaces, motorcycle spaces, and then regular automobile spaces. A bicycle rack will be installed and accessed through a walkway connecting to the sidewalk along Pacific Avenue. And the existing entrance on Pacific Avenue will be closed, and new curb, gutter, and sidewalk will be installed. And cars will access the lot through the existing entrance on 24th Street, which will be widened to 24 feet to meet the Oceanfront Resort Form-Based Code standards. And then existing site lighting will be utilized for nighttime hours of operation, and although not required, a 5-foot Category 1 landscape buffer is proposed along the western property line. And the existing perimeter landscaping along Pacific Avenue and 24th Street will remain and be supplemented with additional plantings to meet perimeter landscaping requirements. The lot will be available to iFly customers and other members of the public seeking parking within this area of the oceanfront. There will be no parking attendants on site, but the lot will be monitored and maintained by iFly employees. The iFly indoor skydiving facility is just to the north of the property across that alleyway of 24th and a half Street. The applicant intends to reface the existing non-conforming pole sign with a sign reading "Park Here," and staff has recommended condition number 3, which states the pole sign must be removed if the parking lot ceases operation or no later than 3 years after the City Council approval. Staff's evaluation acknowledges that this use is directly related to automobile use. However, the addition of bicycle racks on this proposal and the connection to the sidewalk will encourage patrons to walk from the subject property to nearby businesses and the beach. And there's no direct route for cars to access the nearby residentially zoned properties, as 24th Street is a dead-end road to the west. The applicant presented this proposal to the Resort Advisory Commission's Subcommittee, Planning, Design, and Review Committee on January 6th, 2026, and a letter of support with some landscape planting recommendations is included in your supplements package. And this proposal provides a temporary parking solution with the ability to redevelop the property in the future. And staff has recommended condition number 2, which limits the approval to 3 years. And due to the temporary nature of this proposed use and the existing parking shortage in the oceanfront resort area, staff is recommending approval and finds this request acceptable as well as an improvement to the current condition. And I'm on standby for any questions.
Mr. Camp?
In the upper right corner of the site plan where the parking gore is shown with the bike rack on it, do you know, is the applicant planning to rework the brick pavers that are presently on site? And I ask that because they're in poor condition. There's a pile of bricks sitting there. It's uneven leveled. I would hope that as part of reworking the site, taking the building down and doing these other modifications, that relatively small fix to make that a more suitable area for the bike rack will be incorporated.
I don't know exactly about the brick pavers you're referencing, but I do know the plan is to resurface the entire lot, so if that is
including the parking, the bike parking.
Correct.
Thank you.
Further questions? Commissioner Plumlee?
I've drawn an inside straight. This is the third one I have to abstain from. For the reasons set forth in a letter with the city attorney's office.
Come on, Brian.
Would anyone like to
I'll be
read?
no help to you.
I agree. Thank you. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
We have one presentation.
Minutes.
Everybody had a chance to look at the minutes? All good with it?
I propose that they go on to consent, noting the abstentions of 2 planning commissioners from the site visit. That's Commissioner Cromwell and Commissioner Plumlee, and otherwise as marked up by the commission.
For December, yes. Yeah. You know, I was not here in December.
She's going to abstain from December, formal and informal.
Thank you. Thank you. Noted.
You didn't miss me.
I do make mistakes.
You didn't miss me?
It's rare.
He didn't miss me. Sorry.
Before we start, let me get from Vice Chair what we have on the agenda for today.
There are no requests for withdrawal. There is one request for a 30-day deferral. That's agenda item 5. There are 7 items on the consent agenda. Agenda items 2, 3, 4, 8, 9, 11, and 12. And there are 3 agenda items to be heard. Agenda items 1, 7, and 10.
And the minutes are on consent.
Yeah, item 6 is also on consent.
Oh, thank you.
Say, what did I miss?
4 items for consent.
Okay.
So is that 8 items total for consent?
8 items for consent and 3 to be heard.
Thank you.
Okay, good morning, Chair, Vice Chair, Commissioners. Happy to see you today. Happy to be here today to talk about the comp plan. Just before I get started, special thanks to Renaissance Planning, who's gotten us to this point, our consultant that's helped us with this, Chris Sinclair, Cole Malo, and then Jerry West with Dills Architects, and then, of course, 2 of our staff members who have been leading the charge, Hank Morrison and Rachel Miller in the audience. Special thanks to get us to this point. We provided a final draft copy of the comp plan to you in hard copy, I think December 8th. It's been posted. It's dated December 5th as the final draft copy, so it's been out there for the public. We did receive comments from 2 commissioners that you should have a spreadsheet that was provided to you so you could see those comments and how we plan to address those going forward. So I know there'll be a lot of conversation today at the workshop, but we're going to dive in. I'm going to do the first portion of the presentation and then hand it over to Hank to handle the details. Okay, that was me, right? Okay, great. Okay, so the presentation overview today, we're going to discuss what is the comp plan. Just this is a reminder to all of you and to the public. Why is the comp plan being updated? Go through what we heard during our community engagement phases. We're going to talk about what the comp plan is about and what is new from the 2016 plan. Then Hank's going to get into the chapters 1 through 7 in detailed form. And then we're going to talk about the comp plan and how it aligns with the citywide citizen survey that was completed last year. Talk to you a little bit about a budget request that is in the process now for the zoning rewrite as recommended with this comp plan, and then talk about current status and proposed next steps, and then give you time to discuss. So what is the comp plan? This is an essential feature of long-range planning for cities. It expresses a collective, cohesive vision for the future and promotes economic development. It allows for development while protecting valued resources, provides justification for decisions, shapes the appearance of a community, our community, and then guides implementation tools such as the zoning ordinance, capital improvements, and subsidiary plans like our SGAs. Why is it being updated? Virginia law requires review of the comp plan every 5 years. Our last plan was adopted in 2016. We started the process, but then COVID hit, so that's why it's taken longer than normal. Gives us the opportunity to revisit and update the goals, objectives, and policies. What's working, what's not working, gives us the chance to address that. And then it gives us the opportunity to reflect changing conditions, our population changes, flooding, attainable housing pressures, economic shifts, and then new demand for redevelopment and infill development. So our community engagement consisted of 3 surveys initially. We had 9,000 responses to those surveys. We had 10 initial focus groups, then 12 public meetings, and over 1,500 participants. Staff has attended over 100 stakeholder and input meetings, and then 7 Planning Commission workshops have taken place. Today is number 8. I've had 8 City Council staff reports, and then 3 City Council briefings at least. I think if you go back further, we've had several more than that. All of our documents and meetings, the videos are all available on www.virginiabeach.gov, comp plan. And then the total number of comments, written comments received were 612. So what did we hear during the community engagement phase of this plan? There was a recognition that the city is going to grow, so it's important to strike a balance between protecting the established neighborhoods and the rural areas of the city, while also identifying locations that are appropriate for infill and redevelopment, like our strategic growth areas. Also along major travel corridors and within aging commercial areas north of the Green Line. We heard that it's important to maintain the Green Line urban growth boundary for our residents, and of course, resiliency was on a lot of people's minds, making sure that the city's sustainable and resilient into the future, not only environmentally, but also economically and socially. There was also a strong desire from residents who wanted more options for how they could get around the city, to not only be able to drive safely and efficiently to their destination, but there was a strong desire to be able to walk, bike, and take transit to travel around the city. As the process has gone on, there's also been a lot more attention and conversation about our need for attainable housing. So what is this plan about and what is different from the 2016 plan? First, it aligns closely with our City Council priorities. City Council had a retreat in, I believe, the late summer of 2025, so we wanted to make sure that this plan aligns with their priorities, and it does. There's a strong redevelopment focus where there has not been in previous years due to the fact that our green fields are now, we don't have that many left, so we have to really be thinking more about redevelopment and how to do it correctly. There's a designation of context areas, centers, and corridors, and it's important to note that the centers in the plan already exist here in the city with a mixture of housing, jobs, and commerce, and supportive infrastructure. but the plan just puts them on the map as targeted areas for redevelopment. This plan formalizes the blue line. It's much more streamlined than past plans. You will be able to easily navigate through it once it's online, and if it references a subsidiary plan, you'll be able to just click on that and it'll take you right there. And then there's the recommendation to update the city zoning ordinance as part of this plan. We've heard time and time again that our zoning code is somewhat antiquated and it's time to update it, which we support, and we do have a budget request in this year's budget, and we're in that process now, and City Council will consider that in future months. So this is the structure of our comp plan. It's important to note it's very general in nature and then goes down to the details. It starts with the broad citywide goals. It then narrows down further into specific guidance for 4 context areas. And then it narrows down even further into guidance for the different place types, which convey the character, function, and development patterns for the different settings within each context area. These are the citywide goals that have been established. These were established as part of the public engagement process. These goals apply citywide with tailored objectives that are specific to the area of the city you're in. The citywide goals are as follows: economic development and diversity, housing attainment and diversity, infill urban development and multimodal access north of the Green Line, rural and agricultural land protection south of the Blue Line, community identity and connections, neighborhood well-being and safety, and then environmental sustainability. So I am going to turn it over to Hank now to go through the specifics of the plan.
All right, good morning, Planning Commissioners. So going through, this is the table of contents for the comprehensive plan. So like Kathy said, it starts off very broad with the overview and context of the city and the environment. And then it narrows down into the different context areas, the inland, coastal, green line, and rural context areas. And then the last chapter, chapter 7, describes the place type policies and design guidelines that are in place for each different place type. So these are the 4 different context areas. We have the rural in the south, the green line context area between the rural area and the inland, and then we have the coastal context area stretching from the Chesapeake Bay and down to the Atlantic Ocean. And here are the economic development areas laid out in the comprehensive plan. We have our 8 strategic growth areas, 3 special economic growth areas that surround Naval Air Station Oceana, and we also have Princess Anne Commons. So chapter 1, it really just goes over things like existing conditions, demographics, talking about our regional partnerships like HRT and the TPO, our military partners and that important relationship that we're maintaining, talked about the public involvement process, and then we go into the citywide goals, objectives, and the big ideas, and then kind of just how the comprehensive plan is organized. So chapter 1, like I said, lays out those citywide goals and objectives and priorities in order to meet those goals. So first, economic development. Generally, the guidance is to follow the economic development strategy plan, support agricultural industry, and attract year-round visitors. For housing attainment, use the center redevelopment process to increase housing supply, ensure quality of existing housing, and address demand for senior housing. For environmental sustainability, it's things like enhancing healthy ecosystems, improving water quality, mitigating flooding, increase access to nature, and then protecting, enhancing, and connecting natural lands and open spaces. For infill development, direct new growth into centers, and then designate multimodal corridors that promote safe and convenient pedestrian access between the two. For community identity, continue to recognize those unique histories throughout the communities in Virginia Beach and leverage opportunities for things like public art and placemaking opportunities. For neighborhood well-being, promoting quality housing, safe streets, and then we also have included additional protections for neighborhoods that are adjacent to non-residential developments. The context areas really define the vision and policies for the 4 areas in the plan. And centers are really the settings that we envision for compact, mixed-use, walkable, transit-oriented development. And when we refer to planning areas, those are specific parts of the city where development is guided by adopted plans or policies. So the SGAs, the Princess Anne Commons and the ITA, Shore Drive, those are examples of planning areas. And then place types, like Kathy said, they convey the character, the function, and the development patterns within each of the context areas. So an example of that would be our type 1 neighborhoods. Those are the single family zoned exclusive neighborhoods that are actually removed entirely from center development. So as an attempt to protect those established areas. So moving into chapter 2, the goals remain the same throughout, enhancing healthy ecosystems, improving water quality, mitigating flooding, increased access to nature, and then protecting, enhancing, and connecting natural lands and open spaces. The objectives are to expand green infrastructure, expand public access, develop a linear park system, and enhance connectivity between those protected areas. As far as water goes, Virginia Beach, we live in and around the water, so continue to implement the Sea Level Wise program, protect the quality of the city's surface and groundwater, encourage flood mitigation designs that can create multiple benefits and amenities, such as like a floodable park, landscape treatments, things like that. And then the linear park system, it's really an aspirational system of trails that would connect the city, providing safe and scenic pedestrian and bicycle access. The spines are proposed right now to be the Virginia Beach Trail, the Southeastern Trail, the Coastal Trail, and then there's the West Neck Trail as well. So moving on to chapter 3, the inland context area. So this is really the vision for the inland context area. Virginia Beach will continue to grow and sustain and diversify its economic base and standard of living. The growth that we'll experience will be inward, not outward, and that's to protect the rural and agricultural lands south of the Green Line. It's anticipated that the inland context area will absorb most of future development and growth in the city. And then suburban retail and office developments will transform over time into walkable, mixed-use, more urban centers. The neighborhoods will be healthy, safe, and provide a sense of well-being for the people who live there. And then community hubs will be created as places for residents to gather with walking and biking connections to centers and hubs. And this is just kind of how the chapters laid out. We go through the goals and objectives, explain the different planning areas, the place types and policies that go along with the different types of centers. And then we talk about the special use place types, which include industrial uses and logistics, institutional uses like college campuses, and civic uses, things like that. And then business place types, which is basically any sort of business zoning and business operation that's outside of a center would be considered a business place type. We also talk about the neighborhood place types, communities and community hubs, and then we also go into the how the multimodal corridors and freight corridors are laid out. So same kind of deal. The vision for the coastal context area in chapter 4 is basically saying that this is the context area that goes along the Chesapeake Bay and Atlantic Ocean, drawing residents and visitors alike. Businesses in the resort and Shore Drive area will continue to bring outside income that supports the city's economy and tax base. Neighborhoods will continue to feature a mix of housing from single-family homes to multi-story apartments and condos, designed especially to complement the coastal setting. Beaches and dunes will be strengthened to reduce flooding, and the resort will remain a major tourist draw while becoming a more vibrant and accessible destination for residents as well. And then neighborhoods will keep their diverse housing stock and distinct character. And again, these are how the chapters laid out, the goals, objectives, planning area, place types, corridor types, and then communities and community hubs. The Green Line context area will continue to buffer urban and suburban land north of the Green Line, and then rural lands to the south of the Blue Line. Enhancements and connections among open space and natural lands will create a connected open space system. Low-density neighborhoods will be a place for refuge connected to neighborhood-oriented businesses and civic uses with walking and biking access. Princess Anne Commons will continue to be a place for low-impact and low-intensity businesses and activities that help diversify the city's economy and culture. And the transition area will continue to support low-density residential and residential serving uses while prioritizing the preservation of open space. Same, organized exactly the same way. And then finally, we have chapter 6, the rural context area. So this is everything south of the Blue Line. So the city will enhance and connect rural and natural lands to continue the support of viable agriculture south of the Blue Line. We will strive to create an open space system that safeguards the rural landscape and agricultural production, supports ecotourism opportunities, mitigates flooding, promotes wildlife migration, and also provides public access to nature and recreation. And so here we have chapter 7, where we get into place type policies and different design guidelines that provides implementation guidance for how the streets and blocks are arranged and how people will access those. It provides guidance for building form and massing, so that's the shape and the scale of and the aesthetics of structures. We talk about environment and parks, the integration of natural areas, open spaces, and green infrastructure. We provide guidance for parking and loading, so vehicle and cycling parking needs along with freight access. And here are the hierarchy kind of the different center place types. We've got regional, city, and local, while also being located along regional or city corridors. So a regional center is a moderate to high density development pattern with a regionally oriented mix of uses focused mainly on jobs. The central business districts within the Pembroke SGA are really considered to be a regional center. So that's a good example. Locations, a city center is a location for city-oriented businesses and city functions with a moderate to high development intensity or density, about 3 to 10 stories, with a balanced mix of jobs and homes. And so an example of this type of center would be the Western Campus District in the Pembroke SGA, the Hilltop SGA, as well as the Newtown and Centerville SGAs. Those would be considered city centers. And then the local centers are low to moderate intensities, about 2 to 6 stories, with a mix of uses focused mainly on housing. Businesses and civic uses typically orient to those living within the center and in the adjacent neighborhoods. An example of this type of center would be the Central Village District in the Pembroke SGA. The Rosemont SGA and Lynn Haven SGAs would be considered local centers. I think I messed up on my page, I'm sorry. So I'll go into the different, these are just lays out the other different types of place types that I touched on earlier. Neighborhood place types, I'll go into that. Type 1 neighborhood, as I said before, that is a neighborhood where it is a single family exclusive zoning, so that's a lot of places around the city. So a lot of parts of Virginia Beach are considered a type 1 neighborhood. Type 2 neighborhoods, those allow for single family homes in addition to duplexes, triplexes, kind of the range of housing. So there's more of a mix of housing types in there. Coastal also has a mix of housing types, but because of their location close to the coast, there's some design interventions and resilience things that should be taken into consideration when developing in the coastal. And then the transition neighborhood place type, that refers to the single family neighborhoods located in the Green Line context area. And we also have things like community hubs. That is sort of envisioned as something that will kind of organically grow within a community that the city can then designate. But it's really, those are places for people to gather within their neighborhood. It could be a church, a park, a farmer's market, anything like that that brings people together within their neighborhood. And then we have the rural villages, which we're carrying over from the 2016 plan. That's Pungo, Creeds, Back Bay, and Blackwater. And then we also have corridors, which are a type of, it's a place type where that's devoted mostly to transportation and design to improve the transportation system in the city. So I already talked about the kind of the hierarchy between the regional corridors or regional centers, city centers, and locals. And this is a map that just kind of shows where these are all located. I think it's important to note that all the centers are the same size. They have that half-mile radius. They just vary in terms of the intensity of the uses and the mix of jobs and housing. And so, like I said earlier, institutional place types are setting for public and private schools, higher education, medical services, and civic functions. And then we've got the industrial and logistics, which, pretty self-explanatory there. It's a setting for large-scale industrial and logistics and warehousing uses, along with supportive services and retailers. And then the business place type is a setting for groups of businesses and service uses that are located outside of a center. Talking about the type 1, type 2 coastal neighborhoods, and transition neighborhoods. These are brand new concept to the comp plan, but I think it's a good way to differentiate the different building patterns within the city of Virginia Beach. And then touching a little bit more on the rural villages, these are the small scale areas generally around just crossroads in the rural area. And they're places for residents to gather, shop, recreate, and the vision is to not expand these types of uses outside of the rural villages, so that protects that agricultural land down there. And then corridors and community hubs, these are places for neighbors to gather. And then corridors are intended to accommodate multiple modes of transportation, so in order to improve accessibility, mobility, and also economic development for the city. So we also have a hierarchy of corridors. We have a regional corridor. So that is designed to optimize operation, ridership, and the feasibility of bus transit in the short term, and premium transit like bus rapid transit in the future. There are 2 regional multimodal corridors designated in Virginia Beach, the Virginia Beach Boulevard corridor, as well as the Independence to Princess Anne corridor. We have city multimodal corridors, which are designed to enhance mobility, accessibility, and overall livability by integrating various modes of transportation like transit, cycling, walking, and sidewalk networks. These corridors can be used to reduce congestion by improving and giving options for ways for people to get around the different residential, commercial, and industrial areas of Virginia Beach. We have freight corridors, which are designed to facilitate safe and convenient access to industrial and logistics districts in Virginia Beach. And then we also have rural corridors that link the rural villages with the markets, healthcare, schools, and jobs in areas, as well as other cities and states. So the idea is to designate these rural corridors so they maintain their current scale and design, so they don't expand into larger roadways in the future. And so this is just sort of a little flow chart that we put together for how staff is going to use the comp plan for development and review and any discretionary approvals that will be coming before you all. So an applicant will come in with their proposed development. Staff will review if there is an adopted plan or regulation. Our go-to, we will just be using that adopted plan as the review. The other options are to just utilize the existing zoning on the parcel, develop it using by right options. They can, of course, use our design guidelines, not required. But there's also, they can rezone the site to be in better keeping with the vision of the comprehensive plan and while using the design guidelines as well. And then they also, this option 3 is more for large scale redevelopments. It's where if there's multiple owners and multiple parcels that want to redevelop at the same time, that's where we would want and push or at least suggest that they put together a center plan to have a kind of a cohesive design for the entire area. And then we also have appendices in the back that contains the kind of a chart that shows the kind of how the zoning districts that we have in the zoning ordinance now match up with the place types, where those might be acceptable in the future, and what may or may not be appropriate in those areas. So we also provide detailed maps of all of the centers in the city, and then we will also show all of our documents adopted by reference. So those will be linked in the appendix. So Kathy did mention that we took a look at the responses to that 2025 community survey. And just to see how the plan aligned with it, we think that it actually did a pretty good job. Not to toot up my own horn, but so there was a strong satisfaction with parks and recreation in Virginia Beach. I think we all know that. So Imagine VB expands investment in parks, open space, and trail systems, and it proposes the creation of a linear park system with interconnected trails, regional trail links, and neighborhood access points. In Virginia Beach, there's a high satisfaction with public safety. So while public safety is already a strong point in Virginia Beach, the plan really embeds safety in land use and transportation design as well. So there's the Complete Streets policy that's already in place, promoting safe and multimodal corridors, and then also strengthening infrastructure for flood protection and directing development away from flood-prone areas. There's a strong support for arts, culture, and entertainment in Virginia Beach. The plan reinforces and expands that asset that residents already view as a strength. So there's a vision for walkable urban centers that emphasize the cultural vibrancy of Virginia Beach and really focus on placemaking here to create a sense of place. There was a high satisfaction with beaches, Imagine VB prioritizes long-term stewardship of beaches and coastal assets, so strengthening dunes and waterfront areas and enhancing access to these natural areas is a big component of the plan. So we're going over into more of the concerns and desires that came out of the community survey. So there obviously are concerns about flooding and natural resources. So environmental resiliency is a foundational component of this plan. It proposes an environmental and open space framework, which will help to guide stormwater, sea level rise adaptation, and then habitat and wildlife preservation as well. There was mixed satisfaction with streets, sidewalks, and transit. We've heard that kind of consistently through our public engagement process as well. So multimodal mobility is really a core priority of this plan. It talks about establishing corridor plans like the Virginia Beach Boulevard corridor plan within the next 10 years. Talks about integrating walking, biking, transit, and safe road design. There was a desire for more community engagement. So part of that comprehensive plan is a recommendation that for meetings with civic leagues and city boards and commissions prior to private development proposals coming before the city. And then we also hosted, 100+ meetings for this project. So definitely tried to be as engaged with the community as we could in this project. And then housing affordability was identified as a challenge. That's not unique to Virginia Beach, but it is something that we are going to have to focus on. And so the comp plan, it includes strategies to increase our stock of attainable housing, and then uses strategic growth in mixed-use centers to do that by increasing housing supply near jobs, near transit, near services, and in areas where the infrastructure already exists. So Kathy also mentioned this. We have a budget request for the zoning ordinance update in this FY27 budget proposal. So the comp plan is recommending an update to the city zoning ordinance to kind of bring it up to the 21st century. So that's just a big part of, that's one new big thing about the comp plan. We're recommending a zoning ordinance, which is a major, it's a big undertaking, but that's a big component of how we can actually get to where we want to go based off of the comp plan. And then current status and next steps. our most recent draft was posted and provided to Planning Commission on December 8th. Final comments have been compiled and distributed. I know we have our final workshop today, hooray. So looking forward to that conversation and then getting our marching orders for the final draft, that we can get everything squared away for next month, hopefully. That being said, we are anticipating a recommendation vote at your next month's Planning Commission hearing, with City Council considering adoption in March. And that is all I have. I would be happy to answer questions.
You started by saying that the state requires a city to update their comprehensive plan every 5 years. Why is zoning updates not tied to that?
That is a great question. So the state requires only a review of the comp plan. I don't think there's a statutory requirement to make updates to your zoning ordinance. It kind of is as needed. It gets updated, here and there with amendments. But major updates, honestly, that's sort of outside my bailiwick, but that's more of like a council desire. Okay, yeah. I mean, updating the zoning ordinance would be huge.
But why don't they keep pace with each other?
There are amendments. The zoning ordinance they rarely get updated wholesale. That's usually like a once every 20 or 30 years kind of thing. But I wouldn't, the staff doesn't really have a say in whether or not the zoning ordinance gets updated. It's really a council direction and Planning Commission.
Thank you.
Mr. Kemp?
Thank you for the thorough overview. Appreciate it, Hank. 2 questions. In your briefing, you didn't mention our neighboring cities of Chesapeake and Norfolk, who essentially on the same time frame are redoing their comprehensive plans. If you would take a minute after my question and talk for a moment about how you ensured that what we're planning to do, at least at the edges where it interacts with our neighbors, will align and mesh with their vision of what they want to do. I do have a second question after that.
Sure. So I work pretty closely with Chris and the folks over in Chesapeake. So we've been kind of going back and forth throughout the project. We actually hosted a joint presentation at the Virginia APA conference talking about how our plans work together. So we've definitely made a concerted effort on the staff level to ensure that there's some consistency between on a regional level as well as focusing on our internal. Yes.
And if I can just follow up on that, when we have a development proposal in front of us and it's on the edge of any of our neighboring cities, we share that information, vice versa, they share theirs with ours so that we can comment on it and see how it aligns with our comprehensive plans and zoning.
Very good. Thank you both. I didn't want to leave the impression that we're doing this in a vacuum. And of course, I'm not mentioning our other 2 neighbors on the Eastern Shore in North Carolina, but I think you've hit the point. My other question is procedural. Last month, we had a briefing on the Master Transportation Plan, which is a required plan associated with the comp plan. I am assuming that when this comes before us as a vote, we're going to vote on those as 2 items. We're going to take the Master Transportation Plan first, so that once it's approved, we can move ahead with the comp plan. You can't approve the comp plan without the MTP. Is my understanding correct on how that's going to be set up for us, presumably next month?
I believe so. That sounds, I don't set the agenda, but if it makes sense, that does make sense.
Yes, we're anticipating the 2 need to go together. And after our last month's Planning Commission informal in the morning, there were some questions asked about the Master Transportation Plan. Comments were provided. We then met one-on-one, and it is important to let you know that the Master Transportation Plan, the current update is what I'd refer to as a light update, because we are waiting for the TPOs, Transportation Planning Organizations, data to come in, which won't come in until likely the spring, summer, for us to do a very detailed update of the master transportation plan.
Thank you for clarifying that. And to your point, at our last meeting, I did raise issues with the then draft of the master transportation plan. I appreciate staff's willingness to take a meeting with me, which Vice Chair Byler joined us on. And I really appreciated, after going through all of those items, the spreadsheet that indicated virtually all of them you agreed with and look forward to taking into the plan. We can get into a couple of loose details at the workshop rather than here, just to make sure we're on the same page, because the spreadsheet you provided everyone was not updated after that meeting. There were a couple of things that we went over at the meeting. You weren't quite sure what I was getting at. And at the end of it, I believe you agreed that you were on the same page as what I was talking about, and those aren't yet reflected. But overall, I really appreciate the time, because I have a much better sense that these two plans, instead of sort of not recognizing each other, are actually going to be aligned.
Yes, definitely. Thank you, Walter.
Any further questions? Mr. Plumley?
Hey, the ADU reference is starkly different in this most recent draft with regards to neighborhood type 1 and coastal. Can you tell me what the purpose of the change was?
You know, I would have to look back at that. I don't know exactly. Yeah, we can get you that information before the workshop.
Okay. Yeah, I'd like to understand how that came about. And has there been any update with regards to the population figures proposed or projected per center and type of center?
Yes, I believe that Chris Sinclair provided that information about this.
Okay, so can you send me that separate memo? And do you have those figures?
Not off the top of my head, but we can easily.
You can have that for today so I can look at it?
Absolutely.
I mean, my point with that is I'm looking at a Central Beach plan for one of the two regional centers, which has upwards of a potential 10,000 new residents, with a total growth in the city projected to be 23,000 in 2020. We have another regional center. If they're likely the same type of population, you have essentially all of the planned increase in population within those two districts or centers. Why do we have 40 centers? 40 when it comes to local and city centers. If we're going to convert this into a zoning amendment, we're talking about tremendous rezoning of this city to accommodate, allegedly, the increase in population. This, to me, is excessive when it comes to a plan. I think a lot of work has gone into it. I appreciate getting the questions answered with regards to the population projections. But if we're here to try to accommodate growth, and we've sat in the city two regional centers that would more than accommodate the 20 years growth, why are we reaching out all around the city with additional centers with significant density that I can see, that we're going to roll into a zoning ordinance? And now current landowners are going to find themselves with non-conforming uses all around this city, and property owners wondering what they can do with their land at that point, whenever it comes about. And they could take a while for that. I think it will take some time. But I think my personal view, this is my personal view, that when you plan to accommodate growth. You don't go beyond that unless there's some strategic reason to do so. So that's a concern I have. I'm not saying I vote against the plan. I'm saying I'd like to address that in our workshop and talk about it. as a subject. I'm not trying to be another faction within the group. It's very difficult. This is a complicated city with a lot of components. We ever hope to get a plan done, we have to kind of give up on all of our ideals to some degree and maybe hang on to a couple of the ones that we really want to see accomplished. But that's a concern I have. And I appreciate your efforts. You guys have done a great job trying to put this together. It's not a reflection on your work. It's been a very tough process. But thank you.
And if I can just make a comment on the centers, there are 3 different types of centers, as you know, and the plan is that they will develop to different densities, intensity. And I think part of this is these centers already exist. We're just calling them out on the map. We didn't come in and just designate these as centers. And I think that that's where the zoning code and the update is really going to play a role. And I think if we see something as we're going through that zoning update that doesn't align with centers as they're shown in the guidance, then that's maybe a time where we may have to amend this to reflect that. And the zoning code is really going to have to address that piece.
Thank you.
Any further questions? We'll hold on until after the workshop and call this meeting. Yes, sir.
Can I ask an administrative question?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. At our retreat in September, 4 months ago, there was some unfinished business. And one of the items on there was talking about the amount of time that the public and the commissioners have to consider items that are on our agenda and to fully consider them with the materials that are out there used for decision making. Last night, we received 249 pages after 5 o'clock that we were supposed to absorb and deal with for today's votes. This brings right to mind for me the need to revisit that open item from the retreat where staff said they were going to look again at the timeline. And we had a suggestion out there of potentially changing from the second Wednesday to the third Wednesday. If staff was going as fast as they could, maybe some more time was needed. I'd just like to bring that back forward for placement on an appropriate agenda, that we don't just leave that in the past because it's still a current concern. Thank you.
Ms. Schoonover?
The only thing I would say to that, because I do understand, I'm just not sure that we can, because information is always going to come forward at the last minute in some kind of a situation like this. I'm not sure that we can really demand that nobody provide us with critical information that we might need just because it's coming after a later time in the day. It's very inconvenient. I do know. I'm not sure how we can do it because I still want to get the information. If it's pertinent, I want to know what it is. I don't want to be deprived of it because they're getting it later.
Ms. Byler?
So my experience when I visited Norfolk Planning Commission was that they did not allow anything to be submitted at the last minute. And instead, if there was something critical, then it should be continued or deferred for 30 or 60 days. And that's one way of addressing it.
Any more questions, comments? What do you say about that, Caitlin? Is there something we can do to work on that?
We can have an update for you. Your February agenda at the moment is very heavy, so February, March. We can have some feedback for you.
So noting, and we all know, we deferred an item today that I know has caught the public interest. There are other items, as you've noted, that are coming to us in March that the public is very engaged with. I would just ask the staff, to the extent that you have documents in your possession that you want to give to us, it's better to give it to us and the public, to the extent they're public documents, sooner so we can work with them rather than batching them all at the last minute. For today's meeting, there was a parking study that staff had in November. We asked for it last week. We got it last night. If we can avoid that kind of stuff, that would just allow us to make more informed decisions. Thank you. Thank you.
So are we only doing, so when you do the supplements, you do one supplement, then you do two supplements?
Mhm.
Is that like a standard thing where there's only two?
It's just been practice.
Okay, and because I see what he's getting at. Can we, is it a case of if you have stuff, just send it to us when you get it? Is that not what you're asking?
However they want to organize it, I'm just saying the current process of a whole lot at the last minute doesn't help us do what we're supposed to do, make informed recommendations. So however the staff wants to help us with that, that would be greatly appreciated. And to me, more fair to the public, that the public would have more opportunity to know what's going on like we do. Maybe it comes with the staff report, certain other documents you already have in your possession.
Mr. March?
I'd like to add to that, only to the fact that if the public is sending us something, I would not like to restrict any of that. If it comes as a little bit of a dump, the night before, because you've received it just over the weekend, I don't want to limit ourselves to not hearing from whatever the public has to say.
More questions, comments?
Thank you.
We need somebody for the pledge.
Commissioner March has agreed to do that. All right, meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, we will introduce the planning commissioners, beginning with the city attorney, followed by planning commission administrator, Mrs. Caitlin Alcott, who will introduce members of staff.
Diamond Royster, Assistant City Attorney.
Michael Motch, I have the pleasure of serving the city as the at-large representative.
Walter Camp, Planning Commissioner for District 1, Kempsville.
John Cromwell, District 2, Pungo and Blackwater.
Good afternoon. Mike Anderson, District 3.
Catherine Byler, District 4, which is beautiful town center, and all of the areas surrounding it up to the Norfolk border.
John Costin, representing District 9.
Holly Cuellar, District 8.
Brian Plumley, beautiful District 6, from historic SeaTac to the north end of Virginia Beach.
Susan Hippen, District 7, Centerville, Salem, Glenwood, Level Green.
Catherine Schoonover, District 5. Nina Morjani, District 10.
Caitlin Alcock, Planning Administrator. Clerking to my left, we have Briatney Harrison and Grace Smith. In the audience, we have Planning Director Kathy Warren, Deputy Director Carrie Bookholt, our Zoning Administrator Hannah Sabo. With the Planning Administration team, we have Marshall Coleman, Alexis Bailey, and Kristen Bauer. With our Zoning team, we have Lane Harrington and Kara McLean.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, can you please describe the rules and order of business for today's meeting?
Thank you, Chair Costin. The Virginia Beach Planning Commission takes pride in being fair and courteous to all parties in attendance. It is important that all involved understand how the commission normally conducts its meetings. It is equally important that everyone treat each other and the members of the commission with respect and civility. Request that cell phones be put on silent during this meeting. This is an abbreviated explanation of the rules. The complete set of rules is located in the front of the Planning Commission agenda. Following is the order of business for this public hearing. Withdrawals and deferrals. The chairperson will ask if there are any requests to withdraw or defer an item on the agenda. Consideration of these requests will be made first. Consent agenda. The second order of business is the consideration of the consent agenda, which are those items that the Planning Commission believe are unopposed and which have favorable staff recommendation. Regular agenda. The commission will then proceed with the remaining items on the agenda. When an agenda item has been called, we will recognize the applicant or the representative first. Following the applicant or the representative, in-person speakers will be called next, and then the speakers participating via WebEx. Speakers in support or opposition of an agenda item will have 3 minutes to speak per item, unless they are solely representing a large group, such as a civic league or homeowners association, in which they will have 10 minutes per item. If a speaker does not respond or if a technical issue occurs which renders the comments unintelligible, we will move on to the next speaker or the next order of business. Please note that the actions taken by the commission today are in the form of a recommendation to the Virginia Beach City Council. The final decision to approve or disapprove an application will be made by the City Council. The commission thanks you for your attendance, and we hope that your experience here today leaves you feeling that you have been heard and treated fairly. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Next order of business is the consideration of requests to withdraw or defer an item. Are there any items to be withdrawn? Hearing none, we'll move on to deferrals. Are there any items to be deferred?
Mr. Chair, it's my understanding there was a request for deferral of item number 5 for a 30-day deferral.
Is there any objection to this item being deferred? Hearing none. Do I have a motion? Who seconded it?
I'll move to defer item 5 for 30 days. And this is the applicant's request for deferral.
It's been moved by Commissioner Plumlee and seconded by Commissioner Hippen. Are we ready for the vote?
The vote is open. By a recorded vote of 11-0, item 5 has been recommended for 30-day deferral.
Thank you. The next order of business is our consent agenda, and I'm going to turn that over to the Vice Chair to run that portion of this meeting.
Thank you, Chair Costin. Today we have 8 items on the consent agenda. These are applications that are recommended for approval by staff, and the Planning Commission concurred, and there are no speakers signed up in opposition. The first items for consideration today are several sets of Planning Commission minutes, and I've asked Commissioner Camp to read these into the record.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. This portion of the consent agenda is a motion to approve the minutes of the following Planning Commission meetings as revised, with individual abstentions to be noted. These are the minutes of the December 10th, 2025 informal session with Commissioner Hippen abstaining, the minutes of the December 10th, 2025 formal session, again with Commissioner Hippen abstaining, and the minutes of the January 8th, 2026 site visit with Commissioners Cromwell and Plumlee abstaining. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Camp. The next item on the consent agenda is item 2, David and Robin Parker street closure on Winston-Salem Avenue. Is there a representative here today to speak on this item? Welcome. Please state your name for the record.
Thank you, Vice Chair Byler and Chairman Costin, honorable members of the Commission. For the record, Eddie Burdon, Virginia Beach Attorney, representing Robin and David Parker on this application. We appreciate the Commission putting us on the consent agenda. All 5 conditions as recommended by staff are acceptable to us, and appreciate Mr. Trebelcock's work with us on this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Burdon. You may be seated. Is there any opposition to this item being placed on the consent agenda? Hearing none, I have asked Commissioner Schoonover to read this item into the record.
The applicants, David and Robin Parker, are requesting a street closure of a portion of the western half of Arctic Avenue south of Winston-Salem Avenue. This is a reasonable request, and seeing no opposition, the application has been replaced on the consent agenda.
The next item on the consent agenda is Agenda Item 3, Matthew Scornavacci, with modification of conditions for 9th Street. Is there a representative here today to speak on this item? Welcome. Please state your name for the record.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairman Costin, Vice Chair Byler, members of the Planning Commission. My name is Chris Pakta. I'm a land use and zoning attorney with Wolcott Rivers Gates, and it's my pleasure to represent the applicant in this case, Matthew Scornavacci. The applicant and myself appreciate being placed on the consent agenda and the hard work of Alexis Bailey and the planning staff, and all of the conditions are agreeable.
Thank you, Attorney Pakta. You may be seated.
Thank you.
Is there any opposition to this item being placed on the consent agenda? Hearing none, I've asked Commissioner Schoonover to read this item into the record.
The applicant and property owner, Matthew Scornavacci, is seeking a modification of conditions at 514 9th Street. This is a reasonable request, and seeing no opposition, the application has been placed on the consent agenda.
Thank you. The next item is Agenda Item 4, Star of the Sea Catholic Church. Is there a representative here today to speak on this item? Welcome. Please state your name for the record.
Thank you. I'm James Martin. I'm work at Star of the Sea Catholic Church and School. I'm the facilities manager.
Thank you. Are the conditions acceptable to you?
Yes.
Thank you. You may be seated.
Thank you.
Is there any opposition to this item being placed on the consent agenda? Hearing none, I have asked Commissioner Cuellar to read this item into the record.
Thank you. Thank you very much. The applicant, Star of the Sea Catholic Church, Catholic Diocese of Richmond, is seeking a modification of conditions to allow for the construction of a 6-foot-tall fence on this 97-acre oceanfront resort district zone parcel. The concept renderings on this report display a maintenance-free black aluminum fence. Having no opposition with a favorable staff report, the commission has decided to put this on the consent agenda.
Thank you. The next item is Agenda Item 6, Patrick and Joy Patzer, regarding conditional rezoning on First Colonial Road. Is there a representative here today to speak on this item?
Morning, Madam Vice Chair. George Dillon, attorney for the applicants, Dr. Patzer and Ms. Joyce Patzer. We want to thank the commission for placing this on the consent agenda, and my clients accept the proffers as placed in the application in the staff report.
Thank you. You may be seated. Is there any opposition to this item being placed on the consent agenda? Hearing none, I've asked Commissioner Mosh to read this item into the record.
The applicant is requesting a conditional rezoning from O2 Office District to conditional B2 Community Business District to operate a retail store. In staff's opinion and Planning Commission's opinion, we have not heard any opposition, and we have placed this on the consent agenda.
Thank you. The next item is Agenda Item 8, BIVI Paddle LLC, regarding conditional use permit on Laskin Road. Is there a representative here today to speak on this item? Welcome. Please state your name for the record.
Good afternoon, Chairman Costin, Vice Chair Byler, members of the Planning Commission. For the record, my name is Tyler Rose. I'm an attorney with law firm Williams Mullen here today on behalf of the applicant. We appreciate being on the consent agenda today and the hard work of staff and Alexis Bailey on this application. We've reviewed the conditions and find them acceptable.
Thank you.
Thank you
You
for
may
your
be
time.
seated, Attorney Rose. Is there any opposition to this item being placed on the consent agenda? Hearing none, I have asked Commissioner Plumley to read it into the record.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair, this is a facility at 941 Laskin Road. The applicant is VIVI Paddle LLC. This is the movie theater on Laskin. They're requesting a conditional use permit for an indoor rec facility for indoor paddle and pickleball. It's a 4.1 acre B2 community business district parcel. They're proposing a 20,000 square foot vacant movie theater to be converted into these paddle courts. In addition, they're requesting an 8,200 square foot restaurant, which is a use that is permitted by right on this location. Our excellent staff has recommended approval. There appears to be no objection or any kind of opposition to this application. Therefore, the commission felt it was appropriate to place it on the consent agenda.
Thank you, Commissioner Plumley. Next is agenda item 9. See the Gems LLC for a conditional use permit on Virginia Beach Boulevard. Welcome. Please state your name for the record.
Madam Chair, George Dillon, attorney for the applicant See the Gems LLC. Chair Costin, Madam Vice Chair, Planning Commission, thank you for putting us on the consent agenda. Thank you for the hard work of Ms. Bauer on this application. My client consents to all 7 conditions as recommended by staff.
Thank you. You may be seated. Is there any opposition to this item being placed on the consent agenda? Hearing none, I have asked Commissioner Mosh to read it into the record.
The applicant is seeking a conditional use permit for a bulk storage yard to utilize the parcel zoned B2 Community Business District for the storage of towed vehicles. In staff's opinion, as well as the Planning Commission, the request for a conditional use permit to operate a bulk storage yard for the storage of vehicles is acceptable. We ask for it to be placed on the consent agenda.
Thank you. Next is agenda item 11, Cardinal Sign Corporation. Is there a representative here to speak on this item? Welcome. Please state your name for the record.
Hi, my name is Krista Pickrell, and I'm with Cardinal Sign Corporation. We are the sign installers for the Bank of America monument sign that you have placed on the consent agenda.
Thank you. Are the conditions acceptable to you?
Yes, they are.
Thank you. You may be seated.
Thank you.
Is there any opposition to this item being placed on the consent agenda? Hearing none, I have asked Commissioner Cromwell to read it into the record.
The applicant seeks to replace an existing freestanding sign with a new freestanding sign on a property within the Central Business Core District. The proposed monument-style freestanding sign will be located at the southwest corner of the property, adjacent to 2nd Street and perpendicular to Virginia Beach Boulevard. The proposed sign includes a base of 5 feet tall and 8 feet wide and approximately 30 square feet. The existing sign and base are 6 feet, 10 inches tall and approximately 47 square feet. With staff approval and hearing no opposition, we voted to put this on the consent agenda.
Thank you. And the last item recommended for the consent agenda is item 12, iFly Virginia Beach. Is there a representative here today to speak on this item?
Good afternoon, Vice Chair Byler, Chair Costin, members of the Planning Commission and staff. For the record, my name is Lisa Murphy, local zoning attorney with Wilcox Savage, here today on behalf of iFly Virginia Beach. We appreciate you putting on the consent agenda and all of the hard work of Lane Harrington, who's been the planner working on this application. We have reviewed the 5 conditions and they're acceptable to my client. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Attorney Murphy. You may be seated. Is there any opposition to this item being placed on the consent agenda? Hearing none, I have asked Commissioner Mosh to read this into the record.
The applicant, iFly Virginia Beach, is seeking to demolish a vacant convenience store and construct a temporary commercial parking lot at 2402 Pacific Avenue. The location is within the Oceanfront Resort District and the short-term rental overlay. There's a known shortage of available parking, and this would provide a temporary parking solution with the ability to redevelop the property in the future. Due to the temporary nature of the proposed use and the existing parking shortage in the oceanfront resort areas, staff as well as the Planning Commission finds this request acceptable and an improvement on the property's current condition. We ask this to be placed on the consent agenda.
Thank you. Chair Costin, that was the last item on the consent agenda. The Planning Commission places the following applications on the consent agenda. Agenda items 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, 9, 11, 12, and the minutes.
Thank you. Thank you.
I move that these items be placed on the consent agenda and approved by consent.
Second.
It has been moved by the Vice Chair Byler and seconded by Commissioner Hippen that these items be approved on the consent agenda.
The vote is open.
I need to note, it's just, I know we're getting through our procedures, but I need to note I'm abstaining in addition to the minutes as pointed out by Commissioner Camp for the site visit in January. I am abstaining from items 6, 9, and 12 for reasons set forth in letters filed with the city attorney's office.
The vote is open. By a recorded vote of 10-0 with all aforementioned abstentions, all aforementioned minutes and items 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, 9, 11, and 12 have been recommended for approval by consent.
Thank you. If you had an application that was on the consent agenda, your request will now be scheduled for an upcoming city council meeting. Staff will contact you about the date. For those applications on the consent agenda, thank you for your participation, and you may remain in the meeting either virtually or in person, but you are free to leave. Thank you. The next order of business is the regular agenda. Madam Clerk, we are ready for the first item.
Our first item is item 1, City of Virginia Beach.
Good afternoon. I'm Mark Reed, planner with the Department of Planning and Community Development. Item 1 is an ordinance that is to remove the Historic and Cultural District zoning overlay from the Nimmo Church Historic and Cultural District. It would remove that overlay from 2 parcels. The district is located at the intersection of Princess Anne Road and General Booth Boulevard. It contains 2 parcels. The parcel to the west is a commercial parcel with a Royal Farms convenience store, gas station, and car wash. And the other larger parcel is the Nimmo Church parcel, which includes some open space and a cemetery, as well as a community garden. And just a little farther out image of it, outlined in blue, is the parcel line for Nimmo Church, and you can see the density of development that is currently around it. On the left, you see the church. The section immediately behind the steeple is the earliest or most historic section, built in the 1790s. The steeple was built in the 1890s, and there are several 20th century additions around that connect to the historic part of the building. Also, you get a view of the open space with the building and the cemetery in the distance. And then on the other parcel is the Royal Farms, fairly newly constructed within the last few years. It's a convenience store, car wash, and gas station. There have been some letters, one in support of the ordinance, which is from the Nimmo Church. They note the expensiveness, the cost of the materials that they anticipate the Historical Review Board would require for maintenance of siding, windows, et cetera, or replacement of these items for the building. The two in opposition, one is from the Historical Review Board, who notes that this would set a bad precedent for the historic and cultural districts to remove this zoning overlay. Also from the Historic Preservation Commission, which notes that typically to remove the such an overlay, you would expect that the building would either no longer exist, would have been demolished, or would have had damage to it that would have reduced or eliminated its historical significance. And they note that that is not the case with this ordinance.
Are there any questions from the commission for our presenter? Commissioner Plumley.
Mr. Reed, last meeting, I'd asked about the historical significance of this structure, whether it had been archived in photographs of this location, what its historical significance was, and you did a very nice job of laying that out. Do you mind, again, for those in attendance who were not present at our last hearing on this subject, would you mind going through some of those significant historical artifacts?
Certainly, happy to do so. First of all, like many of our historic resources in Virginia Beach, it has been surveyed and is that survey information is in the state Virginia Cultural Resource Information System. There's descriptive information, some photographs, et cetera, that are in our state system to document the property. As I noted, the oldest portion of the building was built in the 1790s. Prior to that on the property, which was donated to the church by the Nimmo family, and they've retained that name. There were camp meetings that were held on the site before the building was constructed. It is considered to be the oldest continually meeting Methodist congregation in Virginia. I think the 1840s, they added a balcony into the church specifically for the enslaved African-American population to be able to attend. And during the Civil War, it was used as a hospital by the Union troops. And I think that they have actually found some writings on the walls that were done during that occupation. So that's kind of a unique historic artifact in the church. After the Civil War, the African-American population that had attended that church then created their own church nearby, so it helped to spawn another church at that time.
Thank you very much.
Commissioner Camp.
Thank you. In the same spirit, Mr. Reed, to bring our comments together into one record for review, and for those in attendance today, I'd like to briefly touch on two items that were mentioned at the December hearing. First, if I understand correctly from our informal as well, could you verify there is no current request from the church for accommodation of any particular or specific modification to the building? Is that correct?
That's correct. We have not received an application for any maintenance, repairs, or other type of activity for the property.
And there is a record in the past of such requests, and if I recall correctly, but please state it in your own way today, that those were heard by various boards. They were taken up to City Council for final decision, and if the applicant had not been satisfied, an appeals process was in place for them to appeal it. Is that generally correct?
Since the Historic and Cultural District was established in 1980, there have been several applications from the church that have come forward, various levels of involvement, some for building additions, some simply to replace a shed on the property that's been damaged. But yes, any denial would have had the opportunity for them to appeal that to the City Council.
Thank you. And then lastly, we touched last time on the idea of the building separately from the current occupancy and use, the church congregation. And the question was asked, in a historic district such as this one, can the building be used for other things and still be compliant with the historic district requirements?
Yes, it can. The ordinance allows for various types of commercial activities. It could certainly be used for residential. Property itself is currently zoned R20, but the building could be rehabilitated into a multifamily type of a situation, but it also could be used for various businesses.
A restaurant, for example?
Yes.
Very good. So in terms of our deliberations today, to be clear that we're talking about the structure, which obviously has been historically used for this one purpose, but that doesn't necessarily have to bind our thinking about this decision that it could only be used for one purpose in the future.
That's correct.
Thank you, sir.
John. Commissioner Plumley.
Just to clarify, because the name of the ordinance is to remove the two G-pens identified from the Nemo Church Historic and Cultural District. That is the title. My understanding is that would essentially do away with the district entirely.
That's correct.
It's not removing it from, it's taking away the district. I just want to clarify that point for everybody's understanding. Is that a fair understanding?
That's correct. That is basically what the boundaries of the district are. The partial G-pen, not the entire parcel for Nemo churches in the district. A small part here and there is just outside of the district. But also within that context, the Nemo Church is the only historic building in the district, so if you removed it from it, there would be no basis for having the district, unless there was, archaeological concerns or whatever.
Thank you.
Any other questions? You may be seated.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, are there any speakers for this item?
Yes, we have one speaker, Jean Estes.
Chairman Costin, Vice Chair, members of the Planning Commission. I'm Gene Estes. I'm a member of the Nemo United Methodist Church's Leadership Board, which serves as our Board of Trustees. I would like to note that we do have members of our congregation and leadership here present today with me to assist in supporting me as I stand up here, but our position as well. We have worked with Councilwoman Henley and members of city staff to initiate the drafting of the proposed ordinance eliminating the Nimmo Church Historic and Cultural District. And I address you today representing the church in this regard. The faith community of Nimmo United Methodist Church has been an active, living congregation committed to making disciples of Christ since the late 18th century. Our little church at the crossroads was originally constructed in 1791, and through the last 234 years, as Mr. Reed remarked, we have on several occasions altered it to serve the evolving needs of our congregation. We want to continue to evolve our building to serve the generations to come. We had two major renovations during the 20th century that added to the historic structure. Today, the portion of our church building that is subject to modern historic preservation is the sanctuary and the steeple, or the tower as it was known in 1893. Our urgent need today is to perform maintenance on the exterior of our entire facility, not just the contributing portion subject to historic preservation. Instead, we would replace the wood siding and upgrade the windows using modern materials, achieving lower installation costs today, but importantly, to achieve reduced maintenance costs in the years to come, and increased energy efficiency into the future. We have the siding is wood with a typical R factor, and that's all the insulation we have in the historic sanctuary. The windows are single pane wood sash windows that date from when the church was renovated sometime in the sometime in the 19th century, when the church was expanded. We have a plan and believe that we have the resources to satisfy this need. However, we cannot afford the current and future costs of requirements imposed by the Historic Review Board. And even if we had the financial resources to install and/or restore using original materials, we would elect not to do so, because doing so would forfeit the benefits of future cost savings and maintenance and energy efficiency. No matter what materials are used, to restore the physical integrity of the church, the project cost will be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. The requirement the Historical Review Board imposes on our historic building is that repairs be made using the same materials as were originally used when the building was constructed in the 18th century, if available, if the trades are still around to install it, all of which is true, but without consideration of cost. That would mean the use of beaded, milled cedar siding, custom milled, for the siding, and restoration of single pane wooden sash windows instead of modern low-cost alternatives. We continue to work and have been working for months with prospective contractors toward development of cost estimates for the needed siding and windows, supporting the cost trade-off between traditional and modern materials. Preliminary results tell us that the cost of installation and life cycle maintenance of original materials is significantly greater, perhaps as much as a few $100,000 more. And that is the crux of our support for the proposed ordinance. We can't afford the installation and recurring future costs of original materials. The added cost threatens to place a financial burden upon us that threatens the very sustainability of our congregation. We need an affordable solution that preserves our facility and serves our membership so that we can continue our mission to connect people to Christ. In recent years, we have been forced by cost constraints to reduce staff, negatively affecting our programming, and to use financial resources and reserves to cover current year operating costs. For the future, we have an ongoing program to seek nonprofit partners in the utilization of our real estate for revenue-producing programs, but which align to our mission. Today, we can afford what we want to do, but we can't afford the solution that the HRB process requires. Needed maintenance in a moment of programmatic austerity motivates us to request elimination of the very historic designation that was intended to preserve our historic character. A question was raised and addressed today at the December 10th Planning Commission meeting as to whether we had submitted prospective plans to the HRB. I'll address that briefly. Prior to the pandemic, seems like forever ago now, we at Nemo Church initiated a building program which was later abandoned at the end of the pandemic because of the effect of the pandemic on church attendance, on building costs, and investment performance. In September of 21, we submitted building plans to the HRB and learned about its inflexibility with regard to application of its process. I might add that those building plans did not include any replacement of siding. That was all new construction. Actually, it was all new construction and renovation of non-historic parts of the building. In fact, we obligated ourselves to not change the historic building at that time. Modern materials could be used on new construction or renovation of structures built in the 20th century, but not on historically designated buildings. In 2024, we consulted the planning department liaison to the HRB about replacing the roof and siding on our historic church. The roof was replaced without objection, but we were advised once again that only original materials could be used on the historic building. So we did not submit applications because we knew what the answer was going to be. Those lessons applied today have motivated us to seek elimination of our historic and cultural district, rather than to submit plans to the HRB, which we are confident would not receive a certificate of appropriateness. Our relationship with the HRB from within the historic and cultural district is not a partnership. Rather, it is unilateral and from which we derive no benefit, no matter what the original intent. We don't have the time to go through that process only to be denied a certificate of appropriateness, nor can we afford what the HRB requires. We understand that a request for an indefinite deferral of consideration of the proposed office had been initiated by individuals within the city or state government to attach an amendment to the state budget, which would provide some funding for preserving our historic church. That request for deferment didn't happen. I want to make it clear we neither asked for nor participated in that initiative. By itself, such funding would be a good thing. Nobody would necessarily turn money down. But if such funding is provided as a de facto means of sidestepping consideration of the proposed ordinance eliminating the district, we oppose it. Funding from the state or any other benefactor for that matter to support renovation and preservation of our historic church in accordance with HRB requirements would satisfy immediate needs, but would leave the church with additional downstream maintenance requirements and without improvements in long-term energy efficiency for decades to come compared to other options. We view the potential for funding from the state and the proposed ordinance as complementary rather than as alternatives. It would be beneficial only if that funding would be beneficial only if the proposed ordinance is adopted and we could carry out the plan as we seek. Rest assured that we, acting in what we believe is the best interest of the congregation, are proudly committed to preserving the historical character of our 234-year-old church, which is the oldest Methodist church building in continuous use in Virginia.
Excuse me, Mr. Estes.
Excuse me?
Excuse me. Your time has run out. Let me see if anybody has any questions for you up here. Does anyone on the commission have any questions for Mr. Estes? Commissioner Plumley.
Mr. Estes, thank you for coming today. You had mentioned the congregation several times. What is the size of the congregation?
We have a weekly attendance on the order of 110, 115 to 120 in 2 services and online participation.
And so there is strong participation with your congregation. Is that fair?
Excuse me?
With the numbers attending, you have strong participation. Is that among the members of your congregation?
We have steady participation. Our attendance is approximately half of what it was before pandemic for a variety of reasons.
I can't remember. What are the number of acres at this site?
I think in total we have about
11.
I was going to say 11 acres. Right.
And this request is to remove all of those acres from the district. Is that fair?
That is exactly true, as well as the acres that are underneath Royal Farms.
Okay. With regard to the historic district, has the church received any local, state, or federal funding underpinned by that designation that you're aware of?
No.
Okay. Are you aware of any visitors coming to your site to see any of the historic features of the church or to observe it?
I believe in the last, since I'm aware, that there have been maybe 2 or 3 requests to come and visit the historic church. We get some other requests to use our facility for meetings of a variety of the sons of the Revolution, the Daughters of the Revolution have used it to commemorate a plaque that was installed to commemorate the James Plantation skirmish during the Revolutionary War. And there's another one of those planned, yes.
And just to clear the air of this question, is there any known intent by the leadership of the church to try to sever any of the property in the future for development of any other type of uses?
I mentioned we have a program going on to attract nonprofits to partner with us to use part of our property, notably the land between Old Princess Anne Road and the New Princess Anne Road, as a revenue-producing initiative, but that aligns with our mission. We have that program going on, but outside of that, we don't have any.
Not residential development, commercial development?
And we wouldn't want any.
Okay. Thank you very much for answering my questions. I appreciate it.
Any other questions? I think I have a little comment. Your church has a great impact on the area. Down the street from you, I don't know if that church, how it was connected, but the AME church there is called Nemo also, because I'm guessing a lot of people, it's a black church, African Methodist, and they use the name Nemo too. When we say we're going to that church, people say, is it at Nemo's or is it, and then they want to know which Nemo's is it at. Would you be adverse to a 60-day? I understand that you don't want a deferral indefinitely, but would 60 days work for you by any chance?
Our preference is to move forward. I don't believe that the 60 days, if it's for the purpose of finding out what happens with the state budget, potential state budget amendment, if that money is going to come to us and leave us in the historic review board or in the historic district, then we would oppose. We would prefer to move forward and have the 2 initiatives go forward in parallel so that they're complementary down the stream and it's not an either-or situation. As far as the 2 Nemo churches, it was on the tip of my tongue. The African American congregation right down the road. their original members were members of Nimmo United Methodist Church until after the Civil War. And we share congregations at least once a year on Thanksgiving.
I just wanted to bring up the impact that historically that it has, even down the street. You may be seated.
Thank you.
Commissioner Count.
Thank you. I think it's Mount Zion. Was that the church?
Mount Zion, that's correct.
Thank you. I have a follow-up question for Mr. Reed, if that's permitted.
Yes, sir. Mr. S. Oh.
Thank you for coming back up. The prior line of questioning established that there's 11.34 acres on the site that we're talking about. The minimum lot size acreage for this particular use is 5 acres. Is that correct? For a church?
That I don't know.
For religious use, it's 3 acres.
3 acres. And do you happen to know, is the cemetery an aspect of the exterior that is historically governed or protected under this historic district, or is it just the structure?
Technically, it's the entirety of the property as far as visible exterior areas are concerned. So yes, the cemetery would come under that. For example, if they wanted to construct something within the cemetery, columbarium, I think is close to the term, then that would need to be reviewed by the review board under the existing zoning overlay.
So if one wished to determine, is there property within the 11.34 acres that is not currently part of a governed structure, one might combine the cemetery with the primary building and its ancillary appurtenances, its walkways and that type of thing, and one might be able to determine there is or isn't surplus acreage on the site, which although the church may not be interested at this time of doing something else with, they potentially could and still be in compliance with the zoning code. Is that conceptually correct?
I believe so.
I would agree with that.
Who would agree with that?
I looked at the zoning administrator because
Okay, thank you for the record.
The only zoning code I'm really familiar with is the Historic and Cultural District
Okay,
overlay.
very good. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. That concludes my questions.
If there are no other questions,
I do have one, I'm sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Reed, my recollection, and I think you had mentioned it, the congregants of this church, prior to the Civil War, had participated in the Underground Railroad. Is that also to your understanding or not?
I'm not aware of that history.
I think that fact was made known to me, and I couldn't recall whether it was at our last hearing. Okay, thank you.
okay, we will open the floor for discussion or we will entertain a motion. Commissioner Schoonover.
I'd like to make a motion we defer this application for 60 days, please.
Is there a second?
Seconded.
It has been moved by Commissioner Schoonover and seconded by Commissioner Morgiani that we defer this item for 60 days.
May I have a clarification from council? Will that deferral still comply with the overall 100-day limit from the time this first came to us?
It would be the last deferral if you so moved and approved the 60 days.
Thank you. Are we ready for the question?
Mr. Chair, if we could have just a brief discussion about the deferral. I just would like to talk about this for a minute because, you know, there are requests being made of us to consider a deferral. It doesn't appear to be coming from the folks putting forth the ordinance. You know, I'm very happy that Mr. Estes and members of the church came here. Their absence at the last meeting was the reason why I felt it was necessary to request that deferral, that we were not getting your side of the story, which is the only way that you can try to make a fair decision with these things. I get the sense that you're contending for your existence as a congregation. You know, you're saying we're looking into the future and we don't see ourselves being able to keep up with the pace of repair. And when you add the costs of keeping these original features, you have inefficiencies, and it's just going to continue to be a burden on the congregation. So the idea, and I think this is sort of the way to think about it, is whether we're here to preserve the congregation or we're here to preserve the district and the history of the district. That's why I want to know how many visitors are coming to this. A deferral does not necessarily mean we're going to vote one way or the other. It's simply an opportunity to hear from others, because there's a lot of players within the city that hold your church in high regard for its historic significance. So I'm caught in the center with my thinking on this, but I'd much prefer more time to consider this, not less time. I don't think that's going to harm you as a congregation for us to hear more. And if we do approve a deferral, I recommend you all come up and speak and lay this out. Mr. Estes is doing a great job, but I think it's useful for us to hear from the full congregation to understand the impact that this ordinance will have. Anyway, I can support the deferral for that reason.
Commissioner Morjani.
Oh, the only thing I want to say is that, Mr. Estes, when we spoke, I told you that we do care about this issue, and I think someone pointed out that this is the first time we're talking about removing a district, so it is very serious.
Commissioner Schoonover.
I just wanted to make a brief comment so that there's an expectation from my thoughts about this. If there is an ability to provide you with the funding that you need in order to make these changes and to continue on, then I'm happy to support the effort to maintain this property as is. However, if it's not giving you what you need, I am absolutely happy to remove this burden on that church. I understand that you all had asked for that, your church to be added to the historical district in and of itself. And if you feel that you need to have that removed in order to function, then I don't want to burden you with that. But I would like to give the opportunity to give everybody who is involved an opportunity to fix this situation that works for everybody. But if it doesn't work for you, then I'm not going to vote to burden you further.
Commissioner Hippen. Oh, I thought you could.
Yeah. I just looked up to see if this church was connected to the Underground Railroad, and I found nothing. That was just a brief search. However, it does have a steep history for the Black community in this area who severed from the church and became part of the AME congregation. My question actually is, how did they get a Royal Farms built on the property if it's a historic property, is one question. The other question is, who is opposing this and where are they?
The city opposes it. This was the presentation Mr. Reed made on behalf of the city.
Okay, Mr. Reed, are you in opposition? Is the city in opposition to this? I'm confused now. I'm gonna be honest, I'm confused. The historic, you as the historic person are in agreement or disagreement?
So the letters that you've received from the Historical Review Board and the Historic Preservation Commission, those are positions that I feel are valid.
You oppose, okay. I wanted to make sure, I'm trying to figure out who's opposing it and why, but the church is saying they can't exist as a church unless they remove this historic district. Am I getting it right?
Well, I think they're saying that the cost to do the repair, replacement, and ongoing maintenance would be somewhat prohibitive to them, if not in the immediate time frame, then down the road, which they think will, at least from what Mr. Estes said, they think will have a negative impact on their ability to maintain their congregation for generations.
Okay, I'm a 33 member of the Daughters of the American Revolution. So the historic significance here of the church, I do understand. My question is, this church was built in 1791. To maintain it, you need to get rid of the historical. I'm trying to get this together. To maintain the church and its congregation, the church wants to get rid of the historical designation, but the Historical Society folks do not. Am I getting it right?
Well, the Historic and Cultural District is a zoning overlay,
yes,
and a city council appointed body, the Historical Review Board, then reviews applications for certificates of appropriateness relative to projects that are taking place within those districts.
Okay, how did they get a Royal Farms built in that area? Do you know?
It was approved by city council. It was recommended for approval, not unanimously, by the Planning Commission. It went obviously to the Historical Review Board. Historical Review Board reviews design and not use. So the initial design came forward to the review board. The review board suggested many changes to the building design, to signs, et cetera. When it came back to the review board and all of those changes had been made, then they were in a position where they needed to issue a certificate of appropriateness for that design. Then it came to the Planning Commission and it went through that process.
Okay, that's all my questions for you. Now, sir, I have a question for you from the church. And I'm sorry if these questions sound strange, but.
Yes, ma'am.
So you own the property that the Royal Farms is located on, correct?
We do not own the property.
You do not own the
No.
property.
It was owned by Lewis Jones before the consortium that bought the property and built the Royal Farms took possession of it. We owned a sliver of that property back in 1990. And we sold that to Lewis Jones, just a sliver that's also a utility easement for Dominion Energy. It wasn't any use to us, and we used those funds to add an extension on our building in 1990.
Okay.
I would add that all of our intentions are to preserve the exterior appearance of our structure. Absolutely. Any materials we use will mimic the materials that are currently used, whether it's the siding or whether it's the windows. From 10 feet away, it'll look exactly the same after our maintenance as it does right now. Better, because the siding will look a whole lot better.
Okay.
Thank
you for answering the next question I was going to ask.
Commissioner Schoonover.
I just want to make a remark that, so also I'm a member of the DIR as well. This church, even if it's removed from this historic district, would still be a historic facility and could still be used in all of the same ways. And, I think we should just keep that in mind. It's not like it's going to be knocked down tomorrow, no longer is valuable. It just wouldn't necessarily have this designation.
Okay. Commissioner Bond.
Thank you all for coming. I do appreciate that. And I think Commissioner Plumley hit on a really key element. In my mind, there is a distinction between the building of the church and the occupants of the building. So all of the comments that I've heard in favor of this application have to do with favoring the congregation and the operations of it. And all of the comments I've heard in opposition have to do with preserving the building and not necessarily whoever's using the building. So I look at Virginia Beach, well, we have the Thurgood House, we have the Francis Land House, we have a couple other historical buildings, and I treasure them. I think it's part of our past, and we have so little of it. We cannot create new historical buildings. So I typically would be in favor of preserving our historical buildings, and I applaud the efforts to do that. I'm sorry it's inconvenient and that it's costly, and I get that, but I think these buildings are important. And I heard you say you don't really want a 60-day deferment because you want to vote. Presumably you want that because you assume that this panel is going to vote in your favor, or you're not that concerned about what our vote is anyway, because at the end of the day, we're only advisory. We are not the decision makers. That will come later at City Council. So I don't oppose the 60-day deferment. I also don't support it. I don't know that it's going to change my position one way or another, but I will support the 60-day deferment if it pleases this commission.
Commissioner March.
Thank you. I think this idea, if anybody is watching this or listening to it for the first time, is a little bit confusing, and I think that they may share the same concerns that Commissioner Hippen had, so I just kind of wanted to break it down kind of in an easier way. So the city is bringing forward this ordinance to remove this zoning overlay, but the city's also opposing what they're bringing forward. And the only person that's affected by it is the church that's realistically not being able to do the things that they need to do without a significant impact to their ability to do the things in the public, as well as the things on their own land. I'm not opposed to the 60 days, but I do want to see, I struggle with this just like Commissioner Plumley. I want to see our city embrace and hold on to our cultural amenities that we have. And I think we've recently started putting a big emphasis into it, but I don't think that our most recent past has been quite as strong of an emphasis by leadership, and I'm happy that we've continued to move forward with that emphasis. But I also don't want to handcuff a congregation from being able to provide the services that they provide. So with this being said, I can support that 60-day deferral. I don't know that anything's going to change with the outcome, but if we can find a way to preserve the essence of what we're trying to preserve with it being in this overlay, I'd like to see something explored in that way.
Are we ready for the question?
The vote is open. By a recorded vote of 11-0, item 1, City of Virginia Beach, has been recommended for a 60-day deferral. Our next item is item 7, Oceana Development LLC.
Please state your name for the record.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chair, members of the Planning Commission, my name is Greg Schmidt with Kinley Horn. I'm a local civil engineer representing the applicant for Oceana Development LLC. The project that we have forth in front of you today is for a bulk outdoor storage yard off of Progress Lane in an industrial area that has been previously developed. The particular property we are looking at is one of the remaining properties that has yet to have been developed within that industrial zoning district. The conditional use permit that we are requesting for would be a bulk outdoor storage yard that would be an accessory use to a site civil contractor office and warehouse building that would also be located on that same property. The site is located in the accident potential zone 2, as well as the AQ's noise zone greater than 75 decibels, which is what has driven much of the industrial development in that area previously. The particular property we are located on was conditionally rezoned in 2005, with some of the adjacent neighborhoods developing around the time of the Great Recession, 2008, 2010 timeframe. We have, related to the site layout, we have taken a pretty intentional approach of locating the building and the parking in the area where that parcel is the skinniest and where it is closest to the residential neighbors that already exist, and locating the bulk outdoor storage yard in an area of that parcel that is developable and also is farthest from the neighbors' backyards and residences. So the design of this was not something that we just made work. This is something that had intention behind it. The applicant did send out door hangers to all the adjacent property owners soliciting feedback. I believe we had heard from around 3 or 4 of those adjacent property owners, largely referencing the parking lot and building area at that time of the conversations we had. In addition to conversations with planning staff, we originally had a minimum Category 2 landscape buffer along the residential, where you can see the parking lot paving directly abut those residences. And in those conversations, we went back and are now presenting an enhanced Category 2 landscape buffer, which includes an additional row of evergreen landscaping. That evergreen landscaping is typically installed at around 6 feet in height, and the plants that we typically would put in those buffers grow around a foot a year. One thing I do want to point out, I know there's been a lot of questions about fencing and things like that. Because this site was rezoned to industrial prior to the development of some of those adjacent neighborhoods, those developers that built those homes had the foresight to install an 8-foot privacy fence facing the industrial zoning district that previously existed. So while a lot of questions around the fencing have come up, we are open to the additional planting materials, but do not see it necessary to also install a fence, creating, a 25-foot wooded corridor between the two properties that would be contained between the two fences. In addition to what's shown on the screen, everything shown in red would meet the typical bulk storage yard ordinance requirements for evergreen screening, as well as an 8-foot tall privacy fence. What is shown in the cyan color, the light blue color, is proposed to be an 8-foot chain link fence, so that is a waiver to the typical bulk storage requirements. The biggest reason for that is, again, where we've located the bulk storage yard, it's hard to tell, but the area that is not shaded with a solid color, that is a resource protection area and jurisdictional wetlands. That area is to completely remain intact, unimpacted, undisturbed with this development. I did run some numbers for the storage yard as it relates to proximity to the residences. The nearest house is roughly 280 feet to the fence line of the nearest part of the storage yard, and the nearest backyard's fence line is about 240 feet to the fence line of the outdoor storage yard. Related to the site civil contractor tenant that our applicant has been working with, the outdoor storage yard would largely be used for temporary rotational storage of construction materials such as piping, storm drainage structures, sometimes equipment, things like that. So this will serve as an office space for them in the building and some indoor warehousing for things that don't handle the elements quite as well. And the outdoor storage area would be, where they will store materials and equipment while they are waiting to be dispatched to a job site. This is not intended to be a junkyard or anything like that. This is going to be new product coming in, new product going out, and being installed in the field. In closing, we did just receive a letter a few minutes ago in opposition. I know there have been some other letters of opposition. The hours of operation right now are 7 to 3:30, Monday through Saturday. Unfortunately, construction doesn't always stop on the weekends. There will be times where they will need to be open on Saturdays to facilitate what they are doing at times for the city and for other clients within Hampton Roads. I do want to point out that with this being located in the APZ2 and the AQs greater than 75, the question of compatibility often comes up. And while it is unfortunate that these residents are adjacent to what was rezoned to residential, those residences in those areas would be under today's ordinance, I believe, considered non-conforming. So when we're looking at compatibility for the use of this land that was rezoned to industrial, the compatibility of what is allowed in that zoning district today, it would be much of what is considered here. And I know the outdoor storage yard is the focus of the vote. There are building elevations. There are some of the additional landscape screening, like I had mentioned, in that closer proximity. Those are things that we've kind of worked on and offered up, with this development as a whole, with some of the focus, the main focus of today's vote being on the outdoor storage yard itself. With that, I'll stand by for questions.
Commissioner Plumlee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Schmidt, what is the bulk yard? What are those materials there to serve? In other words, we have all types of laydown yards throughout the city. Some serve road construction. Others we have dedicated to offshore wind. What types of piping materials are going to be brought and stored on the site? For instance, if it was serving offshore wind, these would be oversized windmill-related parts. Can you give us a little bit more detail of what it's there to serve, the yard?
Sure. Yeah, the tenant that will be occupying this site is a local site civil contractor. So that pipe or those materials consist of your storm drainage inlets. They consist of reinforced concrete piping, plastic piping, metal piping. Those are kind of the main things that would be stored on site as they are produced elsewhere, delivered to the site, and then dispatched to a construction site elsewhere. There will be no construction or maintenance or things like that are anticipated to occur on this property. It is more or less temporary storage of those materials.
Is there any suggested limit to the life of this permit? Is it limited in number of years, or is it without limitation?
Unfortunately, because of the nature of the uses, the accessory use of the outdoor storage yard and the use as a site contractor's office and warehouse, the two uses need to cooperate and work together. So at this time, I don't think we've considered putting a clause in there that would limit the timeline, the expiration of a anticipated use permit.
Have you analyzed whether there's going to be any ingress, egress difficulties with any of the size materials coming in or out?
Yeah, so we run truck turn movements, and we analyze that. And working closely with the tenant that will be occupying the space, they understand that while we have this large area for an outdoor storage area, much of that will need to be reserved for navigating that area.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
There we go. Commissioner Anderson.
Greg, just wanted to see that there was, we know we've talked about the the fencing and the landscaping extra buffer. I'd like to see if, I know this probably might not ever happen, but just in case, I'd like to have it as a backup. If for some reason the property owners behind your property, the fence line, the fencing just disappears, it just falls apart. Nobody puts it. If your client would be willing to put a fence in place of it if that ever happens. And we could put that in as whether it ever happens or not, just kind of a backup plan. I know you guys have more been glad to add the buffering that we've discussed earlier. It's just just one more safe plan for the future, possible future.
Sure. I guess I'm trying to imagine how we create an enforceable condition that that would be acceptable on that front. I do have a representative of the owner here. I may see if she has any thoughts. But I'm trying to think of the wording of that so that it would be enforceable for the city.
I think that speaking for the developer of it and as well for the owner of the land, I think it becomes a bit difficult to enforce replacement of a fence that was previously installed with the residential. It wasn't installed for the benefit of the industrial. So when the homeowners purchased their property, it came with that fence for their benefit. And I somewhat question how to say that someone else's property becomes my responsibility when there's still the 25-foot buffer. So I'm not initially saying no. I just think it kind of lends itself to a very gray area if somebody just was disgruntled that we were there and kept knocking their fence down and we kept having to rebuild it.
Right.
So I think that your request, though, I understand the nature of it. It seems a bit farther than what I think that the landowner would agree to. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, I understand your point. Any advice?
The buffer will remain in place of the 25 feet, so the parking lot wouldn't be entering in any manner around that existing fence. So really it is there for the purpose and use and enjoyment of the residential homeowner. And then the wooded trees will remain, and it's just the parking lot adjacent to that. So without us encroaching on the 25-foot buffer, the fence should remain as long as a homeowner, maintains their fence health.
Okay. One other question. I'm pretty sure I know the answer, but on the building itself, there is not a maintenance shop part. It's just the office and warehouse and the laydown yard, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
I'll withdraw the extra fencing.
Commissioner Camp?
One admin detail. Could the speaker who just spoke identify herself? Thanks.
My apologies. My name is Laurie Miller. I work with the Miller Group, who is a developer for Oceana Development, LLC, who's the owner of the parcel.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
I do have a question, actually two questions. You mentioned the vehicle movements on the site, and as I look at where the gates are to the laydown yard and then the asphalt that's depicted on the site plan, would I understand correctly that large vehicles, perhaps tractor trailers, would be moving, what I'll say is, in this depiction, this orientation on the west side or below the large building, the way that it's oriented here on that strip of asphalt? Is that correct?
That's correct. There is a shared access road with that industrial facility to the page east, I guess.
Okay.
So we do have access gates to that property so that we can pull trucks in and out off that shared access road.
Okay, so as I'm looking at the site plan, you're talking about the red line and the gates up there, correct?
That's correct, sir.
Okay, if you would follow what I'll call the green line at the bottom of the site plan, over toward the left beneath the building, are trucks going to be moving there in the corridor that's closest to the homes?
Yes, sir. There is a overhead door on that side of the building, and there would be some opportunity for deliveries on what is shown in the kind of speckled hatch between the two solid gray hatches.
Okay, thank you. My other question is just to clarify something that came up in the informal. Could you put it to rest for us on Progress Lane? Does the applicant intend to build a sidewalk across the frontage?
Yes, sir. It is a requirement of city traffic engineering that the sidewalk be installed.
Very good, with the ADA ramps at your driveways, that kind of thing?
That's correct.
Thank you so much for the clarification. I'm done.
There are no other questions. Madam Clerk, do we have any speakers for this item?
Thank you all.
Yes, we have 2 speakers. Our first speaker is Martin Dorn, followed by Heather Cook.
Good afternoon.
How you doing, sir?
Fine, my name's Martin Dorn.
Please pay attention to the signs. You have 3 minutes, the lights in front of you, and thank you for your name.
Yes, sir, thanks. I live in Nottingham South. I would be one of the homeowners to the north. Anyway, so I'd like to speak to one of the points that that was zoned after neighborhoods plural were put in place. Plural would be a stretch. There was only one neighborhood, and that would be the neighborhood closest to that southern corner. And let's speak to that southern corner. Apparently, there's a 25-foot buffer. So 25 feet, let's say, is approximately from here to that glass wall back there. I doubt anyone in this room would like semis all of a sudden arbitrarily after years and years and years of having probably 200 yards behind their home as a buffer. So that will be taken away from those particular homeowners. My understanding is you're supposed to have a 300-foot, 100-yard buffer with heavy industrial movement, which is what we're looking at here. Semis with large items, and so there's a certain amount of noise involved in that. I'd like to speak to existing structures on that piece of property, one being doorman. So we're already contending with doorman dumping pipe, like literally just dumping pipe at, could be early in the morning, could be later in the evening. So we're already contending with that and their light noise, light pollution. So just want to address things that we're already having to contend with within that area. 300 feet, offloading trucks. I don't know that I have much more to say except the fencing. So these particular homeowners, that these are pretty nice homes, by the way. This, and not that anyone's home should actually be subjected to something of this nature, but 25 feet, again, is a very, very narrow buffer, and then they're left to with an 8-foot wooden fence as their pretty much only true sound buffer. 25 feet of I'm gathering it seems that it's going to be freshly planted evergreens that, given that math, would be 15 years to reach 15 feet. So that math, I wouldn't be very happy with if I owned a home, and I currently have a pretty nice thick wooded area. You can't see it in this photo. The photo.
Excuse me, sir, your time has expired.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Just hold right there for a second. Does anyone have any questions for Commissioner Mulch? No. Commissioner Plumlee.
Mr. Dorn, when you say the 25-foot buffer, I want to make sure, can you see the picture I'm looking at up here?
Yes, sir.
And are you talking about along that parking lot?
That southeast portion?
Mhm.
Yes, sir. You got the little Z there. So my understanding is they're talking about a 25-foot buffer there. And so you will have trucks riding in right on the other side of that.
Okay. So that appears to be a parking lot for the office facility that I'm looking at, where the laydown yard is, is that correct or incorrect? That laydown yard is being on the other side of the building.
You're correct about the laydown yard, but the prior witness said the trucks would be moving behind that building along that area.
Swooping back behind that office structure?
Yes, Commissioner.
All right, I appreciate you pointing that out to me. Thank you very much.
Any more questions? All right, we're ready for the next speaker.
Our next speaker is Heather Cook via WebEx.
Hi, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Just barely.
Okay. Let me see if I can speak a little bit louder. Is that better? Yeah? Okay. So hi, everyone. My name's Heather Cook, and I live in Nottingham Estates. My property directly borders the proposed yard at 464 Progress Lane. As stated before, I'm opposed to the conditional use permit because the use is incompatible with the residential neighborhoods, and I find it unnecessary given existing facilities, and it'll permanently remove a wooded buffer that protects nearby homes. The laydown yard sits immediately next to these single-family homes, regardless of fencing or partial vegetation. The yard means heavy equipment, staging, trucks, loading, unloading, some of the things that we've already discussed. And these are daily operational realities. And for my family and neighbors, that's significantly going to reduce privacy, safety, quality of life in our homes and yards. I'm also concerned about the request for the chain link fencing around portions of the residential boundary. I don't think that's going to provide meaningful visual or noise buffering, and it doesn't mitigate the industrial character of this use when placed next to homes. And once the trees are cleared, there's no realistic way to restore that lost buffer. What's especially troubling is that the project appears unnecessary. There is already an active laydown yard at the end of Boland Parkway with access to Progress Lane. Additionally, there is an existing laydown yard at the London Bridge Commerce Center less than 2 miles away. These sites are already developed and already serving industrial needs without removing additional trees or pushing industrial activity closer to homes. From a planning and environmental perspective, it makes far more sense to utilize existing industrial resources than to clear wooded land that currently serves as a natural buffer. Approving the conditional use permit would set a concerning precedent that when existing facilities are available, it's still acceptable to expand industrial operations into residential edges and remove natural buffers. For these reasons, I respectfully ask that the Planning Commission deny this conditional use permit, and at a minimum, I ask that you seriously consider whether this location is appropriate when viable alternatives already exist and when the impacts on adjacent homeowners are so direct and permanent. Thank you for your time and considering the concerns of those who live next to this site.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions of the speaker? Then we'll open the floor up for discussion or a motion.
Chair Costin, there's an opportunity for rebuttal before discussion by the commission.
Yeah, I would like to ask a question, but go ahead and do your rebuttal.
I do apologize earlier, as Mr. Dorn had pointed out. The neighborhood I was referring to is the one that is closest to the building. That would be the Evergreens. That was rezoned following and developed after the conditional rezoning was already prepared. So I did want to clear that up.
Say that again.
The Evergreens, which is the nearest cul-de-sac to the building. that is the neighborhood that was developed after the property that we are discussing today was already rezoned. So I just wanted to make that clear.
Okay, I want to make sure that I understand you, because when you were here before, when you were speaking initially,
Yes, ma'am.
you said that, and correct me if I'm wrong, you did say that those homes in that cul-de-sac, as we're looking at the picture in the lower left corner, which would be in the south portion, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that if the zoning, if they were asking to put those homes there now, they would not be able to. The zoning would not be approved. That was what I understood you to say.
Yes. Yeah, I wanted to, I did say neighborhoods earlier. I wanted to be clear in my statement. It was specifically related to the evergreens. However, to address your question, Commissioner Hippen, these neighborhoods are located within the accident potential zone number 2.
Yes.
And in the AQs greater than 75.
Okay, that's what I was asking. Thank you.
It is my understanding that today those would be non-conforming.
I'm sorry, do we have one additional person that wants to speak on the subject? I think had come up late to sign up, is that fair?
Yes, we do. George Flores.
Good afternoon.
How you doing?
Good afternoon, Jorge Flores. I live in Evergreens. I really didn't know the process of how this works. So the building is going to be directly in the back of our neighborhood. So the developer, I was a little confused because he stated that our neighborhood is now industrial. They're the ones who built our neighborhood. And at that time, when we purchased the house back in 2011, the reason we overpay for the house was because of the location. So our concerns will be the buffer zone. So right now, there is no buffer zone between our neighborhood and that building. We only got about a couple of trees. No, I know they said that they're going to install a couple of trees in there, but for personal experience, those trees don't grow in that area. I spent over quite a couple $1,000s on trees that they die after a year. So whatever trees that they put as a buffer is not going to work. Our fence is an 8-foot fence, and that's a very expensive fence. Each is about 5 by 8, and each piece of wood back in 8 years ago, it was $15 a piece. So to replace that fence, it's going to cost a lot of money. But I guess my concern will be on the site that they submitted, on the corner, on the left side of the screen. I don't understand what they're going to put in there. Is that going to be a parking lot? And what are they going to do with that buffer? Because right now, if they remove the 2 trees that are currently located in there, they're going to remove any buffer from our neighborhood, which in essence will reduce our price of the house. In the green land that is to the right of that building is currently habitat by deer and all the animals in that area. So I guess we won't be able to stop the building itself, but we would like the developer to at least take into consideration, since they the one who built our neighborhood, to at least put some type of buffer to at least conserve some of that value of our house. Because when we did purchase the house from them, we overpaid for those houses, like quite a bit. So I know for my property, I overpaid $20,000 extra because of the location. And the location was because we were surrounded by vegetation.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Your time has expired, but just hold right there for a second. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, you may be seated.
We have another speaker, Ashley Lynch.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Ashley Lynch. I also live in the Evergreens. There's a few of us here that are in that cul-de-sac. We are the people that back up to that. I actually live in the center of the cul-de-sac. I back up to a property very similar to what's being proposed. And I believe the same owner actually purchased the property behind us. But I will tell you, one of our concerns is noise. We do have 25 feet and they have a chain link fence. But at 5:45 in the morning, to hear a dump truck with metal pipe coming out, even though there's noise variances, restrictions, they don't seem to follow that. So there's times that it'll be months that we don't hear anything, and then all of a sudden it'll happen days in a row. So I understand normal operating hours, but they don't always abide by that. I think that's part of our concern is if they could add another fence, that might help. We understand our opposition, it may still move forward, but if there's anything else they can do to buffer our use and enjoyment of our properties, we would greatly appreciate it. So thank you for your time.
Was that our last speaker?
That was our last speaker.
The applicant would like to come back and rebut.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do want to be clear, the parking lot area will be used as such. There will be employees that come to this facility and they may get in another truck and go to the job site. So the parking lot itself will function as a parking lot. And that is the intentionality around how we laid this out to locate the outdoor storage area as far away from the adjacent residences as possible. I do also want to clarify, one of the other reasons we do have that road in the rear, as Commissioner Camp had mentioned, is also for fire access for the building. There is a code requirement that would require us to have that loop road so that the firefighters could access the building from all four sides. There are a couple overhead doors, but that would be unloading of smaller things like boxes of parts and things like that. They would not be unloading pipe there and taking it into the building. The larger items would be stored outside in the outdoor storage area. With that, I'll answer any other questions you all may have.
That's what I wanted to make sure of, the clarification on the what we call trucking, on the backside of the property, is that I couldn't imagine that there was going to be any large tractor trailers unloading anything on the backside of the property. I just want to make sure that was.
That's correct. The backside of the building is not large enough with adequate radii to be able to facilitate a semi-truck getting back there. It is large enough for something like a fire truck or a smaller box truck.
Commissioner Plumley.
So, Mr. Schmidt, the way I see this plan, just looking at the plan that's currently up there, if you want to
Yes, sir.
go through it with me, the radius that's cut out, that you see carved out of the parking area, do you see that to the left side of the building? Is that for truck turning?
So there is the speckled area on the back left side of the building.
I see that.
And then there is a skinnier piece of asphalt. That would facilitate, oh, okay, I understand what you're saying, where the jog and the asphalt is to go back out. That is to facilitate enough clearance from the corner of the building to the edge of asphalt to be able to get a fire truck or a smaller box truck to the rear of the building.
Was there any consideration given to front loading at this building as opposed to back loading close to the neighborhood, or even side loading, using the laydown yard area as an entry point as opposed to the area closest to these people's homes?
I would say in a different scenario, yes. In this particular scenario, we typically are not permitted to have overhead doors facing public right-of-way as well. So
would that require a variance to do that?
I don't know specifically. If somebody from planning might want to clarify. I know in the sense of when we're requesting conditional use permits, it is typically not something that the city permits or recommends.
So the answer is it had been considered and rejected?
It had not yet. It had not been considered to front load the building. No, sir.
Okay.
What about side load on the, instead of the rear, have the garage doors on the side of the building on the loading?
Into the outdoor storage area.
Outdoor storage area.
Similarly, that where that other speckled hatch area is,
Right.
would be an overhead door to side low.
Right. And would that be possible to delete the rear load garage and put in place the side?
Unfortunately, where we are right now in this public hearing, I don't believe I can commit to removing that. I can commit to, depending on the motion, either looking into that more with you, Mr. Anderson, as the commissioner rep before city council and working to address that.
Okay. I am looking at the diagram, and it's sitting the way that it is on the screen there.
Yes, ma'am.
And I see two gates going into the outdoor storage. I see one gate in front of the building, and I see one gate behind the building,
That's correct.
which would require your trucks, the gate behind the building, will require your trucks to drive around in close proximity to the neighborhood where most of your opposition is coming from. Am I missing something?
I think you're onto something, but it's not exactly how this could operate. The reason for the two gates, one from the parking, one from the rear of the building, is mostly to facilitate emergency access, fire truck access in a loop around the structure. Most of the larger trucks that may be delivering something like pipe, equipment, storm drainage structures, storm piping, would enter in from the northern boundary on the page, or the right hand where the red fence line is, those two gates. It is not intended that semi-trucks are going behind this building. There could be a scenario where a box truck delivering something like parts or something along those lines that would be going into the interior of the building could go behind the building. That is correct.
And that's what the major opposition is. Okay, I realize that, okay, these homes that are there, they're there now. So whether or not they would have been there if we had waited a while, that's, the horse is out the barn on that.
Sure.
My concern is you've got two gates there to the outdoor storage, okay? And one of the things, the very last speaker just talked about the vehicles making a lot of noise. I don't see where, and there's two gates in, okay? There's two gates to your outdoor storage. To tell us now, we're not gonna use that and we won't be coming around that area where there's only a 25-foot buffer, I don't see that as being realistic, that, no, they're not gonna do that. I just don't.
What I'm stating is for larger deliveries, things that would be making large amounts of noise, it's not feasible based on the physical constraints of the rear of the building. That is all I'm stating.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Commissioner Bond.
Thank you for your presentation, and I also want to thank the neighbors who came out here. Yes, we are a body to review how land is used and planning for the land. That is our job. But I never forget that there's a human element to it. And I heard the passion in the voice of Mr. Flores and the others who are there, and I do sympathize with them. Having said that, once we move into a neighborhood, we never want anything to change around us. We like the trees, we like the quiet, we choose the site, and we almost always object change of any kind. This is a unique piece of property because of the noise restrictions and the possible crash zone, and there's very few things that can be done with it. And in general, I oppose bulk storage that's going to take land out of the public use and not provide any service to anyone except for the applicant. But in this case, the land is very limited. And if you're going to do something with it, this seems like a reasonable use for it. My problem is that the applicant is coming to us asking for special permission, and I don't understand why they can't just do the fencing. And why they can't, why must you have a variance for these small matters? Just do everything you can to minimize the problems to the neighbors that are there. So I guess that's my problem. But I hear some of my fellow commissioners raising issues about site design and access, and I don't have an opinion on that, but I wonder, maybe if a 30-day continuance to reevaluate the way the site is laid out and consider whether or not it's in your best interest to be a good neighbor and just put up the fence is in order. Thank you.
So is that a motion or what?
Good question. I will ask you, would the applicant be all right with a motion for a 30-day continuance to work out some of these things?
I think from the applicant's perspective, we'd be more comfortable with a motion to install a fence in lieu of a continuance.
Thank you. That's all I have for you, and then I'll ask my fellow commissioners something.
Thank you.
So if we get the fence, oh, I see Walter has a comment. So I will wait for further discussion until Commissioner Camp has spoken.
It was just a clarification. I thought I heard an offer to work with one of our commissioners about potential side loading of the site, but then that sort of disappeared in the next part of the discussion. I want to understand, do we have some type of commitment arrangement, or what's going on with that? It just disappeared.
Well, as far as the side loading, that's part of your by right that they can build a building. So we would have to work simultaneously with the city, with city council, with staff to see if they could do that. So that's kind of part of this application, but it's not. As far as the fencing, I think it is would be, like Ms. Miller mentioned, very difficult after the fact. But if we could agree to put a fence along with the buffering, that's what I would suggest and offer as an approval.
Mr. March?
I was just asking our city attorney to see if that would alter the plan so far that it wouldn't allow for it to go forward, that it would have to come back to us. Maybe I can get her opinion out loud.
As of right now, I don't see it being an issue, especially with it just being discussion now. What does it look like, and whether there's potential additional conditions or whatever it may be. I don't see an issue right now.
Commissioner Plumlee.
I'm a little disappointed in this application, just in looking at it. You know, it's sort of an opportunity to say, why not put the building far away from these folks as we can, and perhaps take a larger buffer near the neighborhood, and then have the laydown yard on what remains. You know, I don't know what practical problems that creates in terms of construction and location. And that's why I asked the question if it had been considered and front loading and whether those things had been looked at. And this firm does a great job with these applications, and they look at these from all angles. But I think these folks have a legitimate concern about the noise and activity coming that close to them. And there would be an easy way, if this owner has full control of this entire site, to place the building where they want and direct the traffic how they want on site. So I'm not sure we're doing a good enough job by putting a different fence in or some other small buffer when we could do something more significant. So that's my concern.
Any other discussion or motion? Commissioner March.
Just going back to the front page of our packet, I wonder if we're getting a little bit outside of our realm of what we're looking at. We are looking at a conditional use for a bulk storage yard, and I don't want to lose the sight of that as opposed to the entire plan being a part of this discussion. I do think it's a part of it, but I think as far as what they're asking us to give them a conditional use plan for, a permit for, is the bulk storage, and I don't know how that, what we're asking them to do, if it applies to this, not saying that the concerns aren't valid, but as far as what the scope of what we're supposed to be looking at,
Well, I can tell you from a legal, and I can be corrected by our legal staff, I believe these are all related to their application for this site, the direction of the work and the purpose that it's serving. And that's why I'm asking, if you have control of this entire property and are able to place this building where you want, was it selected in a way to minimize? Because if you look at the larger view, you can see there's commercial activity surrounding this. It's just a matter of where the hub of activity is going to be and whether the folks that are living there can see some minimalizing of the secondary fact that they're going to have to live with forever. So this is the opportunity. And I don't think it's unlawful, unconstitutionally unrelated to this conditional use permit, and a fair request to reconsider how this design is coming for both the bulk storage yard as well as the building.
Were you going to say something? Commissioner Byler.
So following up on all of these comments, it appears to me that even though the applicant has complied with or is willing to agree to the conditions that staff has recommended, it's not in the best interest of this site, or you're not being a good neighbor. So I would make a motion for a 30-day extension to give you time to work out these difficulties and bring it back to us so that hopefully we can approve it at that time.
A second motion.
Who was that second by?
I think Hippen got in before me.
Okay. Okay, so we have a motion to defer for 30 days made by Commissioner Byler and seconded by Commissioner Hippen. Are we ready for the vote?
The vote is open. By a recorded vote of 10-1, item 7, Ocean Development LLC has been recommended for 30-day deferral. Our final item is item 10, Zakiah Walcott.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Please state your name for the record.
Zakiah Walcott. Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the Planning Commission and staff. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak this afternoon and for considering my request for a conditional use permit. Part of my event is a reservation-only, professionally managed private event center designed for intimate gatherings and meaningful celebrations. We host events such as milestone birthdays, baby showers, graduations, retirement ceremonies, small corporate meetings, family celebrations, and art exhibits. This is not a nightclub, nor a bar, or a late-night venue. It is a curated space focused on connection, creativity, and community. From the informal proceedings, I was notified of 2 letters of opposition. I am a mother, a veteran, and a homeowner. So I understand the concerns of the opposition with having young children, understanding the safety, and living within the vicinity of an event venue. Noise levels are monitored by the event attendant and local security or law enforcement, and regulations are placed in the contract. The events hosted are intimate social gatherings, not club-style events. Any music played is at a level where patrons can hold conversations without having to yell. Safety is paramount. The max capacity for any event is 90 people. Also monitored via event attendant and security cameras. Given that Lakeshore's parking lot has 253 parking spaces, there is no need for patrons to park in the adjacent neighborhoods. Though I, as an owner, will not be filing for an alcohol license, I am aware that those renting the venue may apply for a one-day ABC license. And in those cases, I require the one-day license, the license of the hired bartender, and security and/or law enforcement present for any event that has alcohol being served. Any violations will cause for the event to be ended, and that is stated in my contract. I started this business for a deeply personal reason. I have always believed in celebrating life while we have the chance. So often people come together only during moments of loss, at funerals or memorials, when it is already too late to take that one last photo, say I love you, or tell someone how proud you are of them. I am fully committed to operating responsibly, following all city requirements, and ensuring proper parking, noise control, and guest management so that my business is an asset to both Lakeshore's Plaza and the surrounding community. Thank you again for your time and your consideration. I would be honored to bring this community-focused business to Virginia Beach.
Do we have any questions from the commissioners?
I have a question. Do you ever envision any of your clients wanting to use the parking area right in front of your shop for any kind of event? I know sometimes you can get a permission to use parking lots as part of a celebration.
No, ma'am. So we're not allowed to, even with the, the landlord. All of my events have to stay within the suite. Nothing can be outside. I cannot advertise outside besides the business sign that's at the top of the building.
Thank you.
All righty. You may be seated.
Thank you.
I do have one question.
Okay.
I'm sorry, ma'am. I was going to ask you one question. Are you aware of any event space in the vicinity nearby?
Not actually down, I'm not really familiar with that area. It's like down Shore Drive, is it Luxury Affairs? Like a little further down. I don't know if that's Chicks Beach area. I'm a Suffolk resident, so I'm not really sure. But I know when I was retiring, I looked at an event space. It was pretty dated, and so.
Has there ever been an event space like this at this particular shopping center before that you're aware of?
No, sir, not that I know of.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have speakers?
Yes, we have one speaker, Edward Spearman via WebEx. Oh, never mind, he is not there.
Then we would like to open the floor for discussion or entertain a motion.
I'd like to entertain a motion for approval.
Second.
Who was that second?
Schoonover.
Okay, it's been moved by Commissioner Anderson for approval and seconded by Commissioner Schoonover.
The vote is open. By a recorded vote of 11-0, item 10, Zakiya Walcott, has been recommended for approval.
Thank you for your participating in today's Planning Commission hearing.
Excuse me, Chair. Before we adjourn, I just want to ask for one point of clarification on the consent agenda from Commissioner Plumley. So the vote was recorded as an abstention, which would apply to all items. So just wanted your vote on the other items that you did not have a letter on file for.
Yes, my vote is to approve the items I did not abstain from.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. We thank you for your participation, and today's Planning Commission hearing is hereby adjourned.